Chapter 612 Kowloon Ocean, Xinmo Island. Other than occupying a huge area, this island that had no distinctive features had now become the central area of the Kowloon Ocean. The creator of all of this was the Sea King. He consolidated the power of the seven nations with an iron fist and rose step by step with his own hard work. Until now, although the Sea King didn't have a real name, he was recognized as the overlord of the Kowloon Ocean. At this moment, the Sea King was dressed in a long blue robe. He stood at the top of the building in the center of the island, gazing at the hazy moon with a slight frown. Recently, he received a piece of news. The president of the Smoke Dragon Merchant Guild, Smoke Dragon, had awakened and replaced the already destroyed Sharkbite Merchant Guild, becoming the new War Merchant Guild. When the Sea King heard this news, he knew that trouble was coming for him. Back then, he was able to obtain a place in the War Chamber of Commerce by stepping on the Smoke Dragon Chamber of Commerce. However, he did not expect that the Smoke Dragon Chamber of Commerce would take back what belonged to him, because he joined forces with the player clan to overthrow the Sharkbite fleet. He had already formed a grudge with the Smoke Dragon Chamber of Commerce. This was not good news for him. There was no room for reconciliation between them. As long as there was a chance, the Smoke Dragon Chamber of Commerce would definitely hit him while he was down. Similarly, the Sea King would do the same. If Elder Ing of the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce had not been present at that time, he would not have let the Smoke Dragon brothers leave so easily. He would have killed them. However, the Sea King did not expect the Smoke Dragon Chamber of Commerce to return so quickly, which caught him off guard. Although he was worried about the future changes in the situation, he was not afraid of the challenge from the Smoke Dragon Chamber of Commerce. This was because he was no longer the person that the Smoke Dragon could recruit with just a word. His Mutaisi nation was no longer the force that could not gain a foothold in the Kowloon Ocean. Even Langya Island had to lower their heads and pay him resources regularly, which was equivalent to acknowledging his position as the overlord. After obtaining the batch of ice fire stones, the Sea King did not hesitate to put all of them to use. He built 20 specially made Spectre warships, tens of thousands of high-quality weapons, and tens of thousands of sets of equipment. The power of the Mutaisi nation grew rapidly after that. Therefore, the Sea King was very confident in facing the upcoming challenge from the Smoke Dragon Trade Association. However, there was something else that the Sea King could not see through recently. That was the Netherworld Merchant Guild's attitude towards the player clan. According to the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce's tyrannical nature, the player family would definitely wipe them out with lightning speed if they dared to provoke them like this. However, until now, the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce had not made any big moves. This was extremely strange, and it could even be said to be completely inconsistent with the Netherworld Merchant Group's usual conduct. Safety was the top priority in maritime trade. The player clan had repeatedly violated this benchmark, yet they were still safe and sound. This was unbelievable to the Sea King. For this reason, he sent a messenger stationed at the Devouring Sea branch to investigate, and the news he received made the Sea King slightly uneasy. It turned out that the higher-ups of the Yellow Springs Devouring Sea Division had a meeting. At that time, the suggestion was to attack the player clan as a warning to the rest. However, there was one person who stood out and put forward a new suggestion despite all the difficulties. Investigate the player clan's background before making a decision. When the Sea King received the news, he decisively looked for the players near the Kowloon Ocean and informed them of the news. Although it was already too late, the Sea King still hoped that the player clan would be prepared. However, what caught the Sea King's attention was not the player clan's reaction, but the high-ranking member of the Devouring Seas who made the suggestion. This person was not unfamiliar to the Sea King. It was Elder Ing. The Sea King had some understanding of this person back then. He was one of the two elders with the highest authority in the Netherworld Devouring Sea Division other than the branch president. He was also the one who granted him the qualification of the War Chamber of Commerce. The reason why the Sea King wanted to develop in secret and even had the idea of overthrowing the Netherworld Merchant Group was also because of Elder Ing. The Sea King suddenly had a thought when he thought of Elder Ying's words about the freedom of the strong. Could this Elder Ing be plotting something? Of course, All these were just his guesses, and there was no way to prove it. Just as the Sea King was deep in thought, a figure suddenly dashed from below and stopped beside him. "My king, some forces are approaching Exinamo Island. It seems to be quite a large force. They came without prior notice, so they must be hostile." Upon hearing this, the Sea King frowned slightly. He turned to look at Sha Shui and said in a deep voice, "The Smoke Dragon Fleet? It's not the Smoke Dragon Fleet, but another force." Sha Shui immediately answered, "Let's go take a look." As he spoke, the Sea King's figure floated into the air and dashed towards the seaside of Exinamo Island. Upon seeing this, Sha Shui hurriedly followed behind. At the same time, outside the Kowloon Ocean, on the surface of the ocean, there were dense white lines breaking through the waves, forming a giant wave horizontally. Under the water, hundreds of thousands of Illusion Fish Clan members were fully armed, holding sharp steel spikes in their hands as they attacked in a mighty manner. The one leading this Illusion Fish army was Yin Mai, who was about to become the clan leader of the Illusion Fish Clan. A few days ago, after the Illusion Fish Clan made the decision to join the Player Clan, their original clan land was emptied within a few days. Now, they had arrived at the Kowloon Ocean. Before passing by the Kowloon Ocean and heading to the Void Ocean to look for the Player Clan, the Illusion Fish Clan had one more thing to do: annihilate the Mute War Chamber of Commerce and show their loyalty to the Player Clan. Although they had decided to join the Player Clan, the Illusion Fish Clan could not come up with a reliable reason to join the powerful Player Clan. Joining the Player Clan was not a one-sided decision. They had to prove their determination to the Player Clan, and only then would they be completely accepted. After all, the Player Clan was not clear about the Illusion Fish Clan's background. They might even mistakenly think that they were sent by the Acheron Merchant Guild. This was also what the higher-ups of the Illusion Fish Clan were worried about. If they could not be completely accepted and were instead guarded against them, it would be extremely disadvantageous to the development of the Illusion Fish Clan. Therefore, under such circumstances, the higher-ups of the Illusion Fish Clan decided to do something big after a meeting to let the Player Clan understand their sincerity. Therefore, they set their sights on the Acheron Merchant Guild, which was the closest to the Player Clan. The Mute War Chamber of Commerce. The Illusion Fish Clan had some understanding of this newly rising force. It was considered a new force with a lot of potential. However, compared to them who had occupied the Devouring Ocean for many years, there was still a huge gap between them. They were not even at the same level. Therefore, they were determined to win this battle. Absolute confidence came from their strength. As they approached Exinamo Island, they slowly emerged from the surface of the water. Their dorsal fins broke through the waves and began to dash forward. At this moment, a figure accompanied by a full moon appeared in the air above the sea surface. He waved his hand and unfurled a scroll as he mumbled something. After that, the waves on the sea surface surged as a large number of Illusionary Fish Clan warriors were blasted into the sky. Seeing this person, Yamai did not even need to guess to know his identity. Who else could it be other than the president of the Mute War Chamber of Commerce, the Sea King, holding the Sea God's pardon that represented the War Chamber of Commerce? This person was also the purpose of his trip. He wanted to take his head to prove his loyalty to the Player Clan. Thinking of this, Yamai opened his mouth and let out a long cry. The sound wave was instantly transmitted to the ears of all his clansmen. Suddenly, a large number of Illusion Fish Clan warriors leaped out of the water. "Wait, we have no grudges against each other. Why are you attacking us?" Seeing the huge Illusion Fish Clan army emerging from the water, the Sea King quickly retracted the Sea God's pardon and spoke immediately. However, Yamai did not want to waste his breath on the Sea King. "Destroy you? Why do I need a reason? It's just the law of the jungle." His figure also rushed out of the water at this moment. The steel spike in his hand flashed a cold light under the moonlight, transforming into countless phantoms that went straight for the Sea King. Seeing this, the Sea King was puzzled, but he still waved his death's light wheel to meet the attack. Clang! Accompanied by the sound of metal clashing, Yin Mai was smashed back into the ocean. However, at this moment, several people appear beside the Sea King. Even the Sea King did not know how they sneaked up to him. At this moment, it was too late to dodge. His chest and back were pierced at the same time, and blue blood splattered everywhere. Roar! At this critical moment, the Sea King's death energy exploded in an attempt to send the people around him flying. However, what terrified him was that when the death energy hit the bodies of the people around him, it only caused the scales on their bodies to tremble, and the attack was neutralized. Die! At this moment, a cold laugh was heard. Immediately, the steel spike in the Illusion Fish Clan's leader's hand was swung toward the Sea King's neck. Save the king! At this critical moment, Hei Sui and the others arrived and attacked together. They waved a blue stream of light and hit the Illusion Fish Clan's leader's body. Facing this attack, the Illusion Fish Clan's leader's body sank, and the scales on his body trembled again, quickly dispersing the energy wave that hit his body. Meanwhile, the Sea King seized the opportunity and crashed into the Illusion Fish Clan's elder beside him. He forcefully created an opening and rushed out. After rushing out of the encirclement and meeting with Hei Sui and the others, the Sea King turned around angrily and looked at the Illusion Fish Clan's leader and elders. Do we have any grudges? Hearing this, the Illusion Fish Clan's leader, Huan Sha, grinned hideously. Do I need a reason? I just want to kill you. As he spoke, Huan Sha waved the steel spike in his hand and waved off the blood on it. Hearing this, the Sea King's face turned extremely gloomy. From the previous exchange, he had already realized that he was no match for this person. The bigger problem now was that there were 4 of such experts. If they were to fight them head-on, they would have no chance of winning. At this moment, another 5 people floated up from the water. They were the other 5 Illusion Fish Clan's elders who had yet to attack. At this moment, the Sea King cursed in his heart. 10 experts like this, I'll beat you up. The thought of fighting to the death in his mind was immediately extinguished. Everyone, I think there must be some misunderstanding between us. Moreover, you have to understand that I'm a member of the War Chamber of Commerce, appointed by the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce. Please state your intentions. If there really is a misunderstanding, I won't hold it against you. Although he said that he wouldn't hold it against them, the Sea King was already swearing in his heart. How could he not hold it against them when he was covered in wounds? However, the situation was pressing. Facing a battle where he had no chance of winning, the Sea King chose to lower his head. At the same time, he revealed his name as a member of the War Chamber of Commerce. He believed that no matter how strong the enemy was, they would not dare to act rashly under the name of the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce. Huan Sha could not help but laugh when he heard this. I'm sorry, it's because you're a member of the Netherworld Chamber of Commerce that we're going to kill you. As he spoke, Huan Sha's figure slowly turned transparent and blended into the night. Soon, he disappeared on the spot and reappeared beside the Sea King. Bang! The attack was extremely fast, and it was even more traceless when he was in stealth mode. The Sea King was almost hit again. Fortunately, he summoned the Death's Light wheel in time to block the attack. Seeing that the Sea King was sent flying, Hei Sui and the others immediately roared and threw punches at the approaching figure. Huan Sha's pupils constricted when he saw that. The steel spike in his hand suddenly turned into a phantom, creating countless small wounds on Hei Sui and the others. Stop! Seeing that Hei Sui and the others were injured, the Sea King roared again and hurriedly controlled the full moon to attack Huan Sha. Seeing that the full moon was coming at him, Huan Sha's figure turned transparent again and disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already behind the Sea King. Die! Puffed! The steel spike pierced through the Sea King's neck. He could not help but widen his eyes as blood flowed out of his mouth. Immediately, his body became powerless, and he fell from the sky into the water. Seeing this, Hei Sui and the others were extremely sad and angry. They immediately roared and charged Huan Sha. Since they had followed the Sea King until now, they had gone from dissatisfaction to pride. They had witnessed the rise of this new nation step by step, and the Sea King was the soul of this force. Without the Sea King, there would be no Mute Sea Nation. Seeing that the Sea King had been killed, they knew that everything was over. All their efforts had gone to waste. Yen'er, take his head. At that moment, Huan Sha let out a long roar. Okay. Yin Mai, who was below, heard this and swam toward the Sea King's corpse. When he got close to the Sea King, Yin Mai immediately swung his steel spike at his neck. He wanted to cut off his head as a greeting gift to the player clan. At that moment, the Sea King, whom he thought was dead, suddenly opened his eyes. He reached out and knocked away the steel fork in Huan Sha's hand. At the same time, he strangled Huan Sha's neck. The Sea King, who had inherited the Death Overlord's power, was not so easy to kill. Although he felt weak at that moment, this kind of injury was not fatal to him. Seeing this, Huan Sha, who was about to kill He Sui and the others one by one, suddenly froze. He was sure that the attack had pierced through the Sea King's neck. That was why he could not understand why the Sea King could still move and even fight back. Let's talk. While strangling Yin Mai, the Sea King turned to look at Huan Sha and said in a hoarse voice, Okay. Huan Sha did not hesitate and chose to agree. In his opinion, anyone could die except for Yin Mai. Yin Mai was the next successor of the clan leader that he had appointed. Yin Mai had a special status. Hearing Huan Sha's agreement, the Sea King held Yin Mai and levitated into the air. However, he was extremely vigilant at that moment. His eyes were constantly observing Huan Sha and the others. Their assassination techniques were so brilliant that the Sea King had a lingering fear in his heart. He was afraid that he would be ambushed again. Tell me, what's the reason? I don't think we have any grudges, right? The Sea King said in a hoarse voice as he spat out the blood that was gushing out of his mouth. Because you're a member of the War Chamber of Commerce. Our purpose of this trip is the War Chamber of Commerce. Hearing this, the Sea King was furious, but also extremely puzzled. Aren't you afraid of the Acheron Chamber of Commerce's revenge? Since we have done it, we are ready to deal with their revenge, Huan Sha said calmly. At the same time, he stared at the Sea King as if he was looking for an opportunity to attack. Don't move. At that moment, the Sea King suddenly roared to the left. At the same time, he tightened his grip on Yin Mai, causing Yin Mai to cough uncontrollably. Hearing the Sea King's roar, He Sui and the others quickly flew to the Sea King's side and looked cautiously to the left. At that moment, a person slowly appeared on the left. Seeing that the ambush had failed, the Illusion Fish Clan elder raised his hands and slowly retreated. Mother Asterisk, a bunch of scoundrels. Fortunately, I was observant, or else I would have fallen into their trap again. Let go of my clansmen, and the Illusion Fish Clan will admit defeat this time. I promise I will never attack you again. Huan Sha looked at the Sea King in a negotiating tone as if he understood that the situation was dire. I don't believe you. Then how can I make you believe me? Huan Sha's tone became cold. Keep it by my side. When the time is right, I will let him go. Do you really want to die? He is just a clansman. Do you really think you can threaten me with him? Huan Sha raised the steel spike in his hand as if he was about to attack. Then come at me. As he spoke, the Sea King grinned and tightened his grip on Yin Mai again. At that moment, Yin Mai's face was pale. His hands were powerless to hold on to the Sea King's wrist. He looked like he was in extreme pain. Stop, you win. Huan Sha's expression changed when he saw this, and he decisively put down the steel spike in his hand. Although Yin Mai was usually not a serious person, there was a reason why Huan Sha had chosen him as the clan leader. It was because he was the most talented and capable member of a younger generation. Seeing that the Sea King was determined to kill him, Huan Sha's killing intent surged, but he could not do anything about it. Get lost. At that moment, He Sui and the others, who were covered in wounds, shouted at Huan Sha and the others. I hope you let go of my clansmen as soon as possible. Otherwise, I will slaughter the entire Mutesi nation. Huan Sha glared at the Sea King coldly and said in a deep voice. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand behind him. Suddenly, the Illusion Fish Legion on the surface of the water began to dive into the water. Huan Sha and the others followed suit. Seeing this, the Sea King decisively levitated into the air and distanced himself from the surface of the sea. He began to observe the movements on the surface of the sea carefully, afraid that he would be ambushed by these scoundrels again. After staring at the surface of the sea for 2 hours, the Sea King finally dared to approach Shinma Island. After landing, the Sea King immediately knocked Yanmai unconscious with 3 punches. Then, he brought him back to the palace on the island. That night, a defensive boundary appeared outside the palace, and the interior was heavily guarded. Everyone was in a state of panic. When the Sea King returned to the palace, the first thing he did was not to heal his wounds. Instead, he decisively imprisoned Yanmai and called for a meeting. It was not that he did not want to kill Yanmai, but he did not dare to. Against such a powerful force of the Illusion Fish Clan, if he killed Yanmai, the Mute Sea Nation would be finished, just like what that person had said earlier. Meanwhile, the Illusion Fish Clan had left Shinma Island and were on their way to the Liuli coast. Initially, they thought that they would succeed in their attack, but in the end, they failed on the verge of success. Instead, Yanmai became a hostage. At that moment, Huansha was extremely frustrated. In the end, he still underestimated the Sea King's tenacious vitality, which led to the current situation. While he was frustrated, Huansha was also extremely anxious. He was afraid that Yanmai would be hurt. Although he was sure that the Sea King would not dare to kill Yanmai, he could not guarantee that he would be able to use other means. At that moment, Huansha thought of the player clan. According to Yanmai, the player clan was very powerful. Hence, they would definitely have a way to help him. As he thought about this, Huansha immediately roared, "Speed up!" As soon as he finished speaking, hundreds of thousands of Illusion Fish Clan members immediately increased their speed and headed toward the Liuli coast. Chapter 613. Beiki, Liuli coast. The sky was just beginning to brighten, and a thin layer of morning mist covered the coast. With the popularity of gaming pods, the players no longer had to worry about the length of the game. Hence, many players gathered along the coast early in the morning. Among them were players who wanted to explore the sea for treasures, and there were also players who had prepared bait and fishing gear, ready to carry bricks for the whole day. Hence, there were quite a number of players along the Liuli coast. Just then, a player's shout caught the attention of the other players. Immediately, many players turned to look in the direction the player was pointing at. Countless white waves appeared on the sea surface in the distance. As the waves undulated, one could vaguely see a back covered in scales emerging from the water. After days of traveling, the Illusion Fish Clan finally arrived. Although the Illusion Fish Clan was here to seek refuge with the player clan, the players did not know about it. Seeing such a large army, the players were very vigilant. They subconsciously took out their weapons from the channel and got ready for battle. At the same time, some players had already begun to inform other players on the forum and other areas to be prepared for battle. After 3 years of war, the players had long understood how cruel the law of survival in this world was. Just like the land of Senluo that was recently invaded by external forces, if one did not prepare in advance when danger came, it was inevitable that one would suffer greatly. Under the vigilance of the players, the white wave approached the coast. Then, countless figures of the Illusion Fish Clan emerged from the water. As if to let the players understand that they came with no ill intentions, the clan leader, Illusory Killer, growled, and the clansmen behind him dived into the water again. Illusory Killer and the elders of the Illusion Fish Clan slowly walked toward the players on the shore. "What do you want?" Murphy and Little Pomelo, who were originally taking care of their children, came to the front of the crowd and frowned at Illusory Killer. "The Dark Shadow Bloodline." Illusory Killer did not answer. After glancing at Little Pomelo and Murphy, his attention was focused on the connected shadows beneath their feet. At this moment, Illusory Killer was secretly speechless. He had only heard about the Dark Shadow Bloodline from the old clan leader, but had never seen it with his own eyes. According to the old clan leader, although the assassins with the Dark Shadow Bloodline did not have the extraordinary camouflage and defense abilities of the Illusion Fish Clan, in terms of assassination skills and stealth ability, the Dark Shadow Bloodline was far more talented than the Illusion Fish Clan. And the biggest characteristic of the Dark Shadow Bloodline was their own shadows. Hence, when Illusory Killer saw Murphy and Little Pomelo, he immediately realized that something was amiss and recognized the abilities they possessed. Huan Sha seemed to realize that he was behaving inappropriately. He immediately raised his head and looked at Murphy. I'm the leader of the Phantom Fish Bounty Group in the Devouring Sea. I have come to discuss important matters with the player clan. Illusory Killer recalled his encounter in the Quelong Ocean when he said those words. Originally, when he said this to the player clan, he should have been holding the Sea King's head in his hand as a sign of allegiance. But now, not only did he fail to do so, but he had also lost the position of the next clan leader that he had chosen. Thinking of this, Huan Sha felt extremely vexed. He hated himself for underestimating his enemy and making a mistake. However, what the clan leader of the Illusion Fish clan did not know was that he would be making a grave mistake if he really came with the Sea King's head. When the leaks that they had been raising for 3 years were cut off by an external force, even the mild-tempered old farmer would explode on the spot. After that, it would not be a matter of negotiation. Instead, they would chase him to the ends of the earth, not stopping until he was dead. If you don't die, I won't rest. Looking at the slightly changed expression of the clan leader of the Illusion Fish clan, Murphy curiously opened the analysis menu. When he realized that the man in front of him was actually a late Ghost Emperor powerhouse, his expression changed slightly, and he subconsciously looked at the few people standing behind Huan Sha. He was shocked when he saw that the 9 elders were all middle-stage Ghost Emperors. Most importantly, the analysis indicated that they were all from the Illusion Fish clan, which meant that they were the same clan as the guy who pranked them previously. The first thought that came to Murphy's mind was that he was here for revenge. However, looking at Huan Sha's attitude, it did not seem like he was here for revenge. But if he was here for a negotiation, could he have brought hundreds of thousands of troops with him? At this time, most of the players were like Murphy, full of questions. They could not understand Huan Sha's purpose. Seeing that Murphy did not answer him, Huan Sha thought that he was being rude, so he immediately spoke again. I came in a hurry this time, so I did not inform you in advance. I'm really sorry, but this time I really have something important to discuss with the player clan's higher-ups. Can you notify me? Murphy thought for a while after hearing that, but he still nodded. Then, he opened his friend list, clicked on the wall chat group, and began to gather everyone. Murphy, Guyu Lu Chai at In Xiaoqi, Lu Zhan Wu Guai. Are you all there? Urgent, urgent, little Pomelo. The recorder is here. Guyu Lu Chai at In Xiaoqi Chen Ziu Dog. I just finished breakfast and enter the game. What happened? Boss seems to be not online yet. Tonggua's Arms Akim. JPG, Yishur 1. A beautiful day begins with carrying bricks. Tonggua's Arms Akim. JPG, Nye Feng. I did a new experiment last night, which caused me to run out of soul coins. I've completely entered the poor class. Is there any way to carry bricks that can make money quickly? Poor eyes. JPG, Lin Tai, Nye Feng. Follow me to Forge Iron. As long as you can swing the hammer well, you can make money quickly. You can resell a set of custom-made purple equipment, and you can earn double the capital. Smile. Nye Feng. Do you believe that my hammer will suddenly explode when I'm forging iron? Even if I manage to survive this, the crafting furnace will definitely explode when I'm forging weapons. So I won't do this kind of unprofitable business. Side dog. Ha, Bomberman is awesome. Hu He, good morning. Shin Ziyu, good morning. Can you tell us what happened? Chi Ming, good morning everyone. I just checked the forum. It seems like there are guests at Lioli Coast. Dog, hold on, let me call boss first. Lu Chai, coming. I just logged out of the game an hour ago and was about to go out to do something. Then the guild management called and urged me to come back quickly. I'm home now. I just saw the post and am on my way to Lioli Coast. Murphy, I feel that the attitude of the Illusion Fish clan is very strange. You said that they are here to fight, and their attitude is very sincere. You said that they are here to negotiate with an army of hundreds of thousands. I can't see through them. Sea King's confused face. JPG, Little Pomelo. That's right. Chio's Arms Akim. JPG, Yuan Fong. Then I'll go and have a look. I'm stuck at a bottleneck in leveling up my supernatural powers. If a fight breaks out, I'll take the beating. Smile. As the players relayed the information to each other, the players who were online headed towards the Lioli Coast. As time passed, there were more and more players at the coast. At this time, Lu Chai arrived. Seeing Lu Chai, the players consciously made way for him. "Boss Lu, do you need an extra this time? I don't have a big appetite." "Boss Lu, please settle the boxed meals and chicken drumsticks last time." "Thank you." Lu Chai was speechless. He immediately turned off the live chat channel and stood in front of Illusory Killer. After realizing that Lu Chai was the high-ranking member of the player clan that he was looking for, Illusory Killer nodded at Lu Chai and said, "I'm Illusory Killer, the leader of the Illusion Fish Bounty Group of the Swallowing Sea region." Lu Chai, a member of the player clan. Lu Chai also nodded and reported his background. However, he did not mention that he was the leader of the player clan or anything like that. Illusory Killer frowned when he heard that. "You can represent the player clan?" In fact, when Lu Chai arrived, he had already investigated Lu Chai's background. He could not see through Lu Chai's specific realm, but judging from his blood and chi, this person was not strong. "Yes," Lu Chai replied. Hearing this, Illusory Killer did not doubt the overall strength of the player clan. From some of the information he obtained, he could prove that the player clan's hidden strength was extremely strong. It was just that they had not shown it to the public. Therefore, letting the weak Lu Chai step forward was just a smokescreen that the player clan used against the public. Looking at Illusory Killer, who seemed to be deep in thought, Lu Chai was also a little confused. He immediately said, "Just state your purpose." Hearing that, Illusory Killer gritted his teeth and said, "I brought my clansmen here today for only one purpose, and that is to join the player clan." Lu Chai. The players, at this moment, all the players were petrified. This feeling was as if someone had suddenly told you that you had inherited 500 million yuan. While it was unexpected, it also felt very surreal. Looking at the introduction of Illusory Killer on the analysis menu, Lu Chai asked again in disbelief, "Are you sure you want to join the player clan?" "Yes, but I have a condition." Illusory Killer quickly added as he agreed. Hearing that there was a condition, Lu Chai immediately realized that this matter was not as simple as it seemed. There was no such thing as a free lunch. This was definitely an extremely difficult request. "Say it," Lu Chai immediately asked. Illusory Killer sighed and said, "This is what happened. In fact, the Illusion Fish Clan was commissioned by the Acheron Chamber of Commerce some time ago to secretly investigate the player clan. We, the Illusion Fish Clan, have always valued inheritance. Since the Empress has chosen the player clan, the Illusion Fish Clan is willing to take a gamble. To prove our determination, we were prepared to present the head of the Mute War Chamber of Commerce's president, who is the enemy of the player clan, as a greeting gift." But who knew? Illusory Killer did not hold back at all and recounted the entire incident. Initially, he only needed to present the Sea King's head to prove that he was the enemy of the Acheron Chamber of Commerce. But now that he could not prove anything, he could only recount the incident. After that, Illusory Killer could not help but sigh again. After listening to Illusory Killer's narration, Lu Chai was dumbfounded. Sun Chi, who was standing at the side, was so shocked that he stood up straight. At this moment, the players finally understood the whole story. It turned out that all of this was caused by the prank that happened some time ago. However, when the players heard that the Illusion Fish Clan was going to destroy the Sea King, their expressions were rather interesting, especially when they heard that the Sea King's neck was pierced. The players felt a dull pain in their hearts, and some even had red eyes. "We've worked so hard to raise the Sea League for 3 years, and it's growing stronger and stronger. But you almost killed it without saying a word. You're so despicable." After that, Illusory Killer raised his head to see the reaction of Lu Chai and the others. In his opinion, the player clan knew that the Illusion Fish Clan had done so much to show their sincerity. Even if they were not happy about it, they should at least be polite. But the reality was that all he saw were pairs of angry eyes. Some of the players were so angry that their bodies were trembling. Their eyes looked as if they wanted to skin him alive. Illusory Killer was dumbfounded. Chapter 614. I can't tell you the details, but if you trust me, then choose to compromise. You won't regret it. The Empress said no more and left the crowd. Moreover, the next clan leader, Yin Mai, was still in the hands of the Sea King. How could he just leave like that? Lu Chai smiled when he heard the request. Lu Chai was speechless. Don't stop me. I'll kick him to death. That was to lead his clansmen to the distant sea and never return. Huan Sha sighed when he heard that, but he still replied. Huan Sha felt a headache coming on. But before that, he had to make sure the Illusion Fish Clan was reliable. Exactly. No matter what the reason is, you're the benefactor of the Illusion Fish Clan. The Illusion Fish Clan has always worshipped you with the etiquette of an ancestor. It's just that you've already perished. At this point, Huan Sha carefully looked at the Empress and stopped talking. The players' expressions became very interesting when they heard that. If Huan Sha didn't agree to his request, he would definitely not allow the Illusion Fish Clan to join the players. After the players left, Lu Chai turned to Huan Sha and said, "Let's go." From her point of view, seeking refuge was one thing, but swearing to the 6 paths of reincarnation was another. It was more like a form of slavery. They were two completely different concepts. He was troubled by so many problems in such a short period of time. I really want to blow his head off. You're going alone? You're not going to bring your clan's experts? Even so, there was still the possibility of Acheron Chamber of Commerce's revenge. Hearing that Huan Sha agreed to his request, Lu Chai couldn't help but laugh. Huan Sha raised his head awkwardly and said, "You're right," because this was very different from the Empress in the records. At that time, the Empress was crazy to the extreme. She expanded without limit, as if she didn't even fear the gods. Why would she choose to stay here just because of the player clan's strength? Now, tell me your conditions before joining the player clan. Huan Sha couldn't make up his mind at the moment. No. About 2 hours later, Huan Sha and the 9 clan elders emerged from the water after their discussion. They came to Lu Chai again and said, he could not help but lower his head. The Water Empress looked at Huan Sha and said, "I think you've been mistaken about one thing. Making a soul oath doesn't mean enslavement. In fact, this is also a form of cooperation or coexistence." The Empress's arrival attracted Huan Sha's attention. He turned around and was stunned. What do you mean? Illusory Killer was stunned. The soul oath that they knew of was to use one's soul as a bargaining chip to declare to the supreme 6 paths of reincarnation of the Yin realm. Once this oath was made, there was absolutely no possibility of betrayal or resistance. Otherwise, one's soul would be destroyed. When Huan Sha heard this, his heart was filled with curiosity. Moreover, the soul oath didn't affect their lives at all. On the contrary, these NPCs who joined the player faction enjoyed it very much. Now, they couldn't even chase them away. Before Huan Sha could answer, the Illusion Fish Clan's elders standing behind him shouted angrily. Huan Sha was stunned by what the female empress said casually. At this moment, he did not know whether to laugh or cry, telling the player clan how much they valued their legacy, only to be told by the players who knew the truth that they had stabbed the descendants of their ancestors who had fought on the battlefield in ancient times. This feeling was really indescribable. Huan Sha nodded. I'm talking about bringing people, not fighting. One person is enough. Therefore, when he heard Huan Sha's refusal, Lu Chai understood that the pie that fell from the sky had flown away. Looking at the angry group of players, Huan Sha was at a loss. He did not understand what was going on. After calming the players down, Lu Chai turned to look at Huan Sha and said, "Sai, you should learn more about history. Back then, Mute was more valued by the Empress than your Illusion Fish clan. You actually don't know that the Sea King is Mute's descendant." Lu Chai could not help but sigh. Originally, they wanted to use force against the Illusion Fish clan, but they did not expect the Illusion Fish clan to join their faction and become their people. When Huan Sha heard this, he was dumbfounded. "We believe in the Empress, so we agree to the soul oath. But before that, I hope that your player clan can rescue my clan from the Sea King. After that, we, the Illusion Fish clan, will fulfill the soul oath. How about that?" After stating his conditions, Huan Sha looked straight at Lu Chai, waiting for his reply. This request was too King easy for them. In this world, Only NPCs of the same faction could live in peace with the players. It's all thanks to the Empress's guidance. Otherwise, the Illusion Fish Clan would not have achieved what we have today. What? Huan Sha was dumbfounded. After saying this, Lu Chai spoke in the players' live chat channel. When the 9 Illusion Fish Clan elders saw this, they could not help but facepalm. Looking at Lu Chai's slightly nervous expression, Huan Sha was stunned. Just as Yin Mai had said, this person looked too much like the ancient Nethersea nation's empress that they often worshipped in the ancestral worship hall. They were practically carved from the same mold. Looking at Huan Sha, who was extremely embarrassed, Lu Chai's anger disappeared. Let me discuss this with my clan first. I will give you an answer later. After saying this, Huan Sha immediately turned around and dived into the sea with the clan elders. You are wrong. I will not support the weak. Back then, I discovered the talent of the Illusion Fish Clan. That was why I decided to help the Illusion Fish Clan grow. Because you are very valuable to me. The Water Empress did not hide her thoughts. Hearing the Empress mention this, Huan Sha could not help but raise his head curiously, waiting for the Empress's answer. Do you know why I am the player clan? The Empress did not answer, but asked this question. Thinking of this, Lu Chai looked at Huan Sha and said, Absolutely not. I really do not know. Huan Sha looked very embarrassed. The Empress was willing to be enslaved by the player clan? Looking at the Empress leaving, Huan Sha felt very complicated. As for Yin Mai, they would find a way to rescue him. After that, they would leave the nearby waters and choose to escape to the relatively safe distant waters to avoid being accidentally injured in the battle between the player clan and the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. This could be seen from the initial Wood Spirit Clan, Tonghua, Feng Ling, and the other NPCs who joined them one after another. However, Huan Sha and the others had a completely different opinion from Lu Chai. In fact, from Lu Chai's point of view, the Soul Oath was just turning the other party into an NPC in his camp. I hope that you can help me rescue my clansmen from the Sea King. Otherwise, I'm afraid that my clansmen will never leave Shinma Island because the Sea King is afraid of me and will never release him. This is not difficult for the player clan, but before that, you need to swear your soul oath to show your loyalty to the player clan. Then how can I trust your reliability? Lu Chai immediately asked. Looking at the dumbfounded Huan Sha, Lu Chai almost wanted to give him a round of applause. Regarding the matter of sending my clansmen here to investigate secretly, I really feel. As soon as he said this, the expressions of the surrounding players became even more interesting. At this moment, if Lu Chai did not agree, he would immediately turn around and lead his clansmen away. He would never come back here again. Everyone, please disperse. This fight will not continue. I think we will have new NPCs joining us soon. Fortunately, he did not die. But don't worry, as long as you help my clan to rescue Yinner, I will definitely take his head and offer it to you with both hands. The Illusion Fish Clan claimed that they valued their heritage and ancestors, and that they chose to rely on the player clan because of the Empress. However, in reality, they were ruthless towards the Sea King, a descendant of the Nethersea nation, and almost killed the Sea King. Suddenly, he realized where he had gone wrong and immediately said, That's right. Looking at the Empress, who was staring at him, Huan Sha suddenly felt as if he was being stared at by an ancestor. What a curious relative. The players were very familiar with this person. She was a Navy commander, Haiyu. After understanding her history, the players also knew that she was once the Empress of the Nethersea nation. At this point, if he chose not to agree, he only had one way out. It's very simple. I chose to swear my soul oath, so they let me stay. In fact, he also wanted to know why the long-dead Nethersea Empress would appear in the player clan's territory. His conjecture was that the player family was powerful enough to make the Empress willingly submit to them and stay here. Descendant of Huan Sai, not bad. You have reached a realm that even Huan Si has never reached. It seems that the Illusion Fish Clan has indeed risen. At this moment, a figure walked through the crowd and stood beside Lu Chai. At this moment, many players could not help but want to rush up and punch Huan Sha in the face to wake him up. Fortunately, the Sea King was not dead. Otherwise, the players would definitely bury Huan Sha with him. No, they would bury the entire illusion fish clan with the sea chives. Offer it with both hands? Isn't this like a thief stealing the vegetables that we painstakingly cultivated and then happily giving it to us as a gift? Shameless. Then do you know that the Sea King's ancestors, the Mute Nation, are also part of the ancient Nether Sea Nation, just like your illusion fish clan? They once served the Empress together. Lu Chai's expression became very strange as he spoke. However, Huan Sha was not sure about this guess. Haha, all right. We will set off to Xinmo Island now. I will bring you back to your clan. Upon hearing this, Huan Sha was slightly taken aback. He then smiled. After all, Huan Sha had come with sincerity this time. Moreover, the ignorant were not guilty. Most importantly, the Sea King was currently safe. Come to think of it, she was also the ancestor of the Sea King. They were both from the Mute Nation. Did you say that your illusion fish clan values inheritance? Upon seeing this, Lu Chai quickly opened the live chat channel and started to appease the agitated crowd. Otherwise, he was afraid that these fearless players would directly attack him. However, at this moment, Lu Chai interrupted Huan Sha. Even for a highly popular existence like the Sea King, the word villain had to be added in front of his name. He was still on the opposing side. Moreover, the love-hate relationship between them and the Sea King had never stopped. Insulting each other was a daily occurrence. Looking at Huan Sha's resolute attitude, Lu Chai immediately gave up. Moreover, the sole oaths that they had seen were all about slavery. That was why they felt that Lu Chai's request was too much. Let's go. I will bring you back to your clan. How is the Sea King now? However, after the previous soul identification, Huan Sha was now certain that this was the great devil that stirred up trouble in the Nether Sea Nation, the Empress herself. Chapter 615. When Huan Kil heard Lu Chai's calmness that he was only going to retrieve his people and that there would be no fighting, Huan Kil's expression became rather interesting. From the information he received, he knew that the relationship between the player clan and the Sea King was very bad. The Sea King withdrew from the Void Ocean and went to the Kuelong Ocean because of the players. Now, the merchant ship he was protecting was also hijacked because of the players. Hence, no matter how he looked at it, the relationship between the Sea King and the player clan was very bad. This was also the reason why he chose to attack the Sea King's faction to prove to the players that the Phantom Fish clan was on their side. Hence, when Huan Kil heard Lu Chai say that one person was enough, he was very puzzled. Looking at the confident Lu Chai, Huan Kil nodded with a complicated expression. Although he felt that this was not reliable, he still nodded when he thought of the potential power of the player clan. After all, even if there was an emergency, the player clan would send their powerhouses to solve it. He did not have to worry about anything. Thinking of this, Huan Kil immediately said, "Let's go then." Lu Chai nodded and walked to the shore. He waved his hand to summon his specter warship and walked on it. Huan Kil's pupils shrank slightly when he saw this. He could not see where this specter warship came from. This made Huan Kil once again confirm the strength of the player clan. After all, space-type items were extremely precious in the underworld. They were not something that an ordinary force could possess. Although the Phantom Fish clan also had a space-type item, it could not contain a huge item like the Spectre warship. "Get on the ship, let's go." Lu Chai's voice came from the Spectre warship. Upon hearing this, Huan Kil's figure disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already beside Lu Chai. The other 9 Phantom Fish clan elders also followed him to the Spectre warship. "Your clansmen can stay here. We'll go ahead," Lu Chai said after looking at the densely packed Phantom Fish clan members around the warship. All right. This time, Huan Kil did not raise any more questions and chose to agree decisively. After testing the Sea King's strength, Huan Kil felt that with the 9 clan elders and himself, it would not be difficult for them to fight their way out even if they went deep into Shima Island. Lu Chai nodded and waved his hand. The warship immediately let out a bestial roar and slowly sailed forward. "There's no one piloting your warship?" Illusory Killer was astonished to see this. Lu Chai smiled and did not explain anything. He believed that after becoming an NPC, the Illusion Fish clan would understand. No matter how much he explained now, he might not be able to understand. He could only hope that the NPC this time would be more reliable and not learn bad things. Lu Chai thought of how the obedient Wood Spirit clan had changed drastically after coming into contact with the players. Then, he looked at Tonghua, the Rock Ghost King, and the other rascals eating, drinking, and gambling. Along the way, Illusory Killer began to ask about the player clan in a roundabout way. He wanted to know more about the big family he was about to join. In this regard, Lu Chai was able to deal with it easily. His words were half true and half false. Huan Sha actually felt a sense of yearning when he heard it. After 2 days of high-speed sailing, the warship that Lu Chai was on entered the Kuolong Ocean and headed towards Shima Island. As time passed, when Lu Chai's warship approached Exanimo Island, Illusory Killer became vigilant and prepared for battle. Don't worry, there won't be any battles. But before that, you'd better disguise yourselves to avoid unnecessary trouble. Lu Chai looked to Huan Sha and said, Disguise is what? Huan Sha was stunned when he heard that. Anything is fine as long as it's not your current form. After all, you have a grudge with the Sea King. Lu Chai said indifferently. Huan Sha nodded when he heard that. The scales on the surface of his body trembled, and his body began to shrink. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a man who looked very similar to Lu Chai, but had many differences. When the other 9 Illusion Fish clan elders saw this, their bodies began to distort and transform as well. They used the players as a blueprint and transformed into different human forms in the blink of an eye. Lu Chai was speechless when he saw this. Although he had learned about the Illusion Fish clan's abilities from the analysis menu, he was still shocked when he saw them transform with his own eyes. It would be a waste not to be a spy with such abilities. No wonder the Underworld Chamber of Commerce would ask the Illusion Fish clan to investigate the mansion of the dead. Is this okay? Huan Sha asked in a deep voice. His tone had also become very similar to Lu Chai's. No problem. Lu Chai nodded. As the warship that Lu Chai and the others were on approached Exanimo Island, the guard stationed at the coast of Exanimo Island immediately noticed them. They immediately relayed the news to the interior of the island. The person who received the news was Lan Hu Shan, the lord of the Mutesi nation. He immediately used the communication conch to ask the guards about the specific situation. Which force's warship is this? Stop it and ask about its purpose. The interior of Exanimo Island was still in a state of strict defense. Lan Hu Shan did not dare to be careless. This time, the Illusion Fish clan's sudden attack almost killed the Sea King. If it was not for the Sea King's tenacious vitality, the Mutesi nation would have been overturned. Therefore, Lan Hu Shan was very vigilant against external forces. Moreover, they did not receive any prior notice of external forces' visit this time. They had to be on guard. At this moment, a subordinate reported from the conch. Lord Lan, this warship belongs to the player clan. It has visited our Exanimo Island many times before. Lan Hu Shan could not help but be stunned when he heard this. Then, he was pleasantly surprised. In his opinion, although the player clan was unreliable, they might be able to help them if they came at this time. During the period when the Sea King was injured, he might be wary of other forces, but he would never be wary of the player clan. This was because it had been proven many times that the player clan would always bring them hope in times of crisis. From the earliest founding of the nation to the ambush of the Sea King at the ruins of the Nethersea nation, to the arrival of the Smoke Dragon fleet, it had been proven countless times that the player clan was on the same side as them. Although the Sea King had never admitted to this, Lan Hu Shan felt that it was a tacit friendship between them. Therefore, he immediately said, "Stop them. Wait for me. I'll go out and welcome them personally." After instructing his subordinate, Lan Hu Shan immediately stood up and walked out of his room. He crossed the defensive boundary along the way and headed straight for the coast. Looking at the approaching sea, Huan Sha was very confused. He could not help but ask Lu Chai, "Why didn't they stop you from stopping?" Lu Chai smiled faintly when he heard this. "Don't worry. You'll understand soon. I can't explain it to you right now." Huan Sha suppressed his doubts and nodded. At the same time, He had many speculations in his mind. After sailing for a while, the warship slowly docked at the coast of Exinemo Island. Even after Lu Chai and the others alighted from the warship, no one came out to stop them. Not far away, a garrison team merely glanced at them and nodded. They did not do anything drastic. At this moment, Huan Sha was completely dumbfounded. Even if the Sea King and the player clan were excluded, the current Mutesi nation belonged to the Acheron Chamber of Commerce. The player clan, who had repeatedly gone against the Acheron Chamber of Commerce, should be their enemy. What did this tacit nod mean? At this moment, a stream of light came from the island and landed in front of Lu Chai. It was Lan Hushan. "Welcome," Lan Hushan said to Lu Chai with a smile after he steadied himself. Upon hearing that, Lu Chai nodded with a smile. "I'm looking for the Sea King. The king is inside. Please." Lan Hushan turned around and gestured for Lu Chai to enter. At this moment, Huan Sha and the 9 Illusion Fish clan elders were dumbfounded. Please? From their point of view, shouldn't the Mutesi nation and the player clan fight each other to the death? What did he mean by please? With doubts in mind, they followed Lu Chai into the island under Lan Hushan's lead. After passing through several heavily guarded checkpoints along the way, they arrived at the defensive barrier at the center of the island. At this time, Lan Hushan took out a token and created a gap outside the barrier. Everyone immediately stepped into it. It could be said that Huan Sha and the others had disguised themselves very well. Even at this moment, Lan Hushan still did not realize that the few people behind Lu Chai were the powerhouses who almost killed the Sea King that day. On the way to the Sea King's palace, the security was obviously tighter. However, the guards did not question Lu Chai and the others led by Lan Hushan. As one of the 6 lords whose power was second only to the Sea King, Lan Hushan had the authority to bring people in and out as he pleased. When they arrived at the palace, Lan Hushan stood still and turned around to look at Lu Chai apologetically. "Please wait a moment. I'll inform the king. A few days ago, a thief ambushed the king and injured him. He's currently recuperating inside. Please forgive me." Lu Chai nodded immediately. "It's all right. Please inform the king." Lan Hushan nodded and walked into the palace. At this moment, Huan Sha finally could not help but ask Lu Chai, "Aren't you guys enemies?" "We are, but it's a little special. You'll understand." Lu Chai answered. It was not that he did not want to explain, but Huan Sha probably would not understand, even if he said the leak theory. Only when he joined Beiki and became an NPC would he understand what leaks meant to the players. After waiting for about 10 minutes, Lan Hushan hurriedly came to Lu Chai from the palace. He said, "The king is waiting inside. Follow me." Lu Chai nodded immediately. He then led Huan Sha and the others into the Sea King's palace. In fact, it was not Lu Chai's first time coming to this palace. It had already existed since the founding of the country. However, compared to back then, the interior decoration had become more luxurious. From this, one could see the rapid development of the Sea King's forces in the past few years. From being a foreign force in the Void Ocean that was rejected by the local forces in Kuelong, to becoming the overlord of the Kuelong Ocean now, the players could see the progress that they had made. After walking through a few corridors, Lu Chai saw the Sea King. At this moment, the Sea King was wearing a soft blue robe. He stood in the palace with a pale face. The newly grown flesh at his throat proved that he had suffered a serious injury. "Sea King boss, how have you been?" Lu Chai greeted the Sea King with a smile. The Sea King could not help but roll his eyes. He was no stranger to Lu Chai. He remembered that Lu Chai always represented the players to negotiate with his side. The last time they met was when they were discussing the plundering of the Ice Firestone at the coast. They even drank together during that time, so they were considered acquaintances. "Why are you looking for me?" the Sea King asked as he looked at Lu Chai. "I'm looking for someone from you." Lu Chai immediately stated his purpose. "Who?" The Sea King was confused. He did not understand Lu Chai's purpose. "Oats. Who's Oats?" The Sea King was stunned. Lu Chai was speechless. After some thought, Lu Chai turned to look at Huan Sha and the others. He said, "Show your true form." Huan Sha and the 9 illusion fish clan elders were stunned. They first looked at Lu Chai, then at the Sea King. Although they did not understand the reason, they still obeyed Lu Chai's words. Their bodies distorted and transformed. Under the Sea King's horrified gaze, these few players turned into the figures that he had been worried about for days in the blink of an eye. The word F***CK came out of his mouth. Chapter 6:16. When Huan Kil heard Lu Chai's calmness that he was only going to retrieve his people and that there would be no fighting, Huan Kil's expression changed. Huan Kil's expression became rather interesting. From the information he received, he knew that the relationship between the player clan and the Sea King was terrible. The Sea King withdrew from the Void Ocean and went to the Kowloon Ocean because of the players. Now, the merchant ship he was protecting was also hijacked because of the players. Therefore, no matter how he looked at it, the relationship between the Sea King and the player clan was terrible. This was also the reason why he chose to attack the Sea King's faction to prove the Phantom Fish clan's stance to the players. Hence, when Huan Kil heard Lu Chai say that one person was enough, he was very puzzled. Looking at the confident Lu Chai, Huan Kil nodded with a complicated expression. Although he felt that this was not reliable, he still nodded when he thought of the player clan's potential power. After all, even if there was an emergency, the player clan would send their powerhouses to solve it. He did not have to worry about anything. Thinking of this, Huan Kil immediately said, "Let's go then." Lu Chai nodded and walked to the shore. With a wave of his hand, he summoned his specter warship and walked on it. Huan Kil's pupil shrank when he saw this. He could not see where this specter warship came from. This made Huan Kil confirm the player clan's strength again. After all, space-type items were extremely precious in the underworld. It was not something that an ordinary force could possess. Although the Phantom Fish clan also had a space-type item, it could not contain a huge item like the Spectre warship. "Get on the ship, let's go." Lu Chai's voice came from the Spectre warship. Upon hearing this, Huan Kil's figure disappeared on the spot. When he reappeared, he was already beside Lu Chai. The other 9 Phantom Fish clan elders also followed him to the Spectre warship. "Your clansmen can stay here. We'll go ahead," Lu Chai said after looking at the densely packed Phantom Fish clan members around the warship. All right. This time, Huan Kil did not raise any more questions and agreed decisively. After testing the Sea King's strength, Huan Kil felt that with the 9 clan elders and himself, even if they went deep into Shima Island, it would not be difficult for them to fight their way out. Lu Chai nodded and waved his hand. The warship immediately let out a beast roar and slowly moved forward. "Your warship is unmanned?" Huan Kil was very surprised when he saw this. Lu Chai smiled and did not explain anything. He believed that after becoming an NPC, the Illusion Fish clan would understand. No matter how much he explained now, he might not be able to understand. He could only hope that the NPC this time would be more reliable and not learn bad things. Lu Chai thought of how the obedient with Spirit Clan had changed drastically after coming into contact with the players. Then he looked at Tonghua, the Rock Ghost King, and the other rascals eating, drinking, and gambling. Along the way, Illusory Killer began to ask about the player clan in a roundabout way. He wanted to know more about the big family he was about to join. In this regard, Lu Chai was able to deal with it easily. His words were half true and half false. Huan Sha actually felt a sense of yearning when he heard it. After 2 days of high-speed sailing, the warship that Lu Chai was on entered the Kowloon Ocean and headed towards Shima Island. As time passed, when Lu Chai's warship approached Exinamo Island, Illusory Killer became vigilant and prepared for battle. "Don't worry, there won't be any battles. But before that, you'd better disguise yourselves to avoid unnecessary trouble." Lu Chai looked at Huan Sha and said, "Disguise as what?" Huan Sha was stunned when he heard that. "Anything is fine as long as it's not your current form. After all, you have a grudge with the Sea King," Lu Chai said indifferently. Huan Sha nodded when he heard that. The scales on the surface of his body trembled, and his body began to shrink. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a man who looked very similar to Lu Chai, but had many differences. When the other 9 Illusion Fish clan elders saw this, their bodies began to distort and transform as well. They used the players as the blueprint and transformed into different human forms in the blink of an eye. Lu Chai was speechless when he saw this. Although he had learned about the Illusion Fish Clan's abilities from the analysis menu, he was still shocked when he saw them transform with his own eyes. It would be a waste not to be a spy with such abilities. No wonder the Underworld Chamber of Commerce would ask the Illusion Fish Clan to investigate the mansion of the dead. Is this okay? Huan Sha asked in a deep voice. His tone had also become very similar to Lu Chai's. No problem. Lu Chai nodded. As the warship that Lu Chai and the others were on approached Exinamo Island, the guard stationed at the coast of Exinamo Island immediately noticed them. They immediately relayed the news to the interior of the island. The lord of the Mutesi nation, Lan Hushan, was the one who received the news. He immediately asked the guards about the specific situation through the communication conch. Which force's warship is this? Stop it and ask about its purpose. The interior of Exinamo Island was still in a state of strict defense. Lan Hushan dared not be careless. The sudden attack from the Illusion Fish Clan almost killed the Sea King. If it was not for the Sea King's tenacious vitality, the Mutesi nation would have been overturned. Therefore, Lan Hushan was very vigilant against external forces. Moreover, they did not receive any notice of external forces visiting this time. They had to be on guard. At this moment, a subordinate reported from a conch. Lord Lan, this warship belongs to the player clan. It has visited our Exinamo Island many times before. Lan Hushan was stunned when he heard this. He was pleasantly surprised. From his point of view, although the player clan was unreliable, they might be able to help them if they came at this time. While the Sea King was injured, he might be wary of other forces, but he would never be wary of the player clan. This was because it had been proven many times that the player clan would always bring them hope in times of crisis. From the earliest founding of the nation to the ambush of the Sea King at the ruins of the Nethersea nation to the arrival of the Smoke Dragon fleet, it had been proven countless times that the player clan was on their side. Although the Sea King had never admitted to this, Lan Hushan felt that it was a tacit friendship between them. Therefore, he immediately said, "Stop them. Wait for me. I'll go out and welcome them personally." After instructing his subordinate, Lan Hushan immediately stood up and walked out of his room. He crossed the defensive boundary along the way and headed straight for the coast. Looking at the approaching sea, Huan Sha was very confused. He could not help but ask Lu Chai, "Why didn't they stop you from stopping?" Lu Chai smiled faintly upon hearing this. "Don't worry. You'll understand soon enough. I can't explain it to you right now." Huan Sha suppressed his doubts and nodded. At the same time, he had many speculations in his mind. After sailing for a while, the warship slowly docked at the coast of Exinamo Island. Even after Lu Chai and the others alighted from the warship, no one came out to stop them. Not far away, a garrison team merely glanced at them and nodded. They did not do anything drastic. At this moment, Huan Sha was dumbfounded. Even if the Sea King and the player clan were disregarded, the current Mutesi nation belonged to the Acheron Chamber of Commerce. The player clan, who had repeatedly gone against the Acheron Chamber of Commerce, should be their enemy. What did this tacit nod mean? At this moment, a stream of light came from the island and landed in front of Lu Chai. It was Lan Hushan. "Welcome." After Lan Hushan steadied himself, a smile appeared on his face as he looked at Lu Chai. Upon hearing that, Lu Chai nodded with a smile. "I'm looking for the Sea King. The king is inside. Please." Lan Hushan turned around and gestured for Lu Chai to enter. At this moment, Huan Sha and the 9 Illusion Fish Clan elders were dumbfounded. Please? From their point of view, the Mutesi nation and the player clan were supposed to fight to the death when they met. What did he mean by please? With doubts in mind, they followed Lu Chai into the island under Lan Hushan's lead. After passing through several heavily guarded checkpoints along the way, they arrived at the defensive barrier at the center of the island. At this time, Lan Hushan took out a token and created a gap outside the barrier. Everyone immediately stepped into it. It could be said that Huan Sha and the others had disguised themselves well. Even at this moment, Lan Hushan still did not realize that the few people behind Lu Chai were the powerhouses who almost killed the Sea King. On the way to the Sea King's palace, the security was obviously tighter. However, the guards did not question Lu Chai and the others led by Lan Hushan. As one of the 6 lords whose power was second only to the Sea King, Lan Hushan had the authority to bring people in and out as he pleased. When they arrived at the palace, Lan Hushan stood still and turned around to look at Lu Chai apologetically. "Please wait. I'll inform the king. A few days ago, a thief ambushed the king and injured him. He's currently recuperating inside. Please forgive me." Lu Chai immediately nodded. "It's all right. Please inform the king." Lan Hushan nodded and walked into the palace. At this moment, Huan Sha finally could not help but ask Lu Chai, "Aren't you guys enemies?" "Yes, but it's a little special. You'll understand." Lu Chai answered. It was not that he did not want to explain, but Huan Sha probably would not understand, even if he said the leak theory. Only when he joined Beiki and became an NPC would he understand what leaks meant to the players. After waiting for about 10 minutes, Lan Hushan hurriedly came to Lu Chai's side from the palace. He said, "The king is waiting inside. Follow me." Lu Chai immediately nodded. He then led Huan Sha and the others into the Sea King's palace. In fact, it was not Lu Chai's first time coming to this palace. It had already existed since the founding of the country. However, compared to back then, the interior decoration had become more luxurious. This also showed the rapid development of the Sea King's forces in the past few years. From being a foreign force in the Void Ocean that was rejected by the local forces in Kuelong, to becoming the overlord of the Kuelong Ocean now, the players could see the progress. After walking through a few corridors, Lu Chai saw the Sea King. At this moment, the Sea King was wearing a soft blue robe. He stood in the palace with a pale face. The newly grown flesh at his throat proved that he had suffered a serious injury. "Sea King, how have you been?" Lu Chai greeted the Sea King with a smile. The Sea King could not help but roll his eyes. He was no stranger to Lu Chai. He remembered that Lu Chai always represented the players in negotiations with their own side. The last time they met was when they were discussing about plundering the Ice Firestone at the coast. They even drank together during that time, so they were considered acquaintances. "Why are you looking for me?" the Sea King asked as he looked at Lu Chai. "I'm looking for someone from you." Lu Chai immediately stated his purpose. "Who?" the Sea King was confused. He did not understand Lu Chai's purpose. "Oats." "Who's Oats?" the Sea King was stunned. Lu Chai was speechless. After some thought, Lu Chai turned to look at Huan Sha and the others. He said, "Show your true form." Huan Sha and the 9 Illusion Fish Clan elders were stunned. They first looked at Lu Chai, then at the Sea King. Although they did not understand why, they still obeyed Lu Chai's words. Their bodies distorted and transformed. Under the Sea King's horrified gaze, these few players turned into the figures that he had been worried about for days in the blink of an eye. "What the F*** CK?" he said skillfully. Chapter 617. The Sea King had many speculations about the player clan in Beiki. However, one thing he was sure of was that there were many secrets in this clan. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been able to survive until now. However, the secret that Lu Chai mentioned caught him off guard, and he couldn't accept it. The Empress had fallen many years ago, and the nearby seas had changed several dynasties. How could she still be alive? Therefore, the first thought that came to the Sea King's mind was that Lu Chai was joking with him. "You don't believe me?" Lu Chai asked calmly. "No." The Sea King looked doubtful. From the Sea King's point of view, it was unrealistic that the Empress was still alive, let alone joining the player clan. As the creator of a superpower, she was known to be cruel in the versions of stories that circulated in the nearby seas. How could she join a stupid force like the player clan? Not only did it not fit the image, but it also took a lot of effort to do so. "It's too fake." Thinking of this, the Sea King immediately said, "Although I really want to know the secret of the player clan, you can't joke around with my ancestor. I advise you to be kind." Lu Chai was speechless. "Believe it or not, I'm not forcing you to believe it." Lu Chai couldn't help but roll his eyes. "Are you looking for a fight?" "No." "Then tell me quickly. If the Illusion Fish clan joins the player clan, What do you have to make them serve you forever? Your ancestor, the Empress, is in the player clan. What can he do? I told you that the illusion fish clan values inheritance. The Sea King was speechless. At this moment, he felt that Lu Chai really wanted to fight him, and he also had the urge to smash Lu Chai's head. He treated the player clan like fools, and obviously, the player clan thought the same of him. Forget it if you don't want to tell me, but you can bring the illusion fish clan back. After a moment of silence, the Sea King suddenly waved his hand impatiently. Lu Chai was surprised to hear this. Aren't you afraid that the illusion fish clan will find out about the player clan and destroy us, followed by the Mute Sea Nation? Even if someone dies, you guys will die first. The Sea King couldn't help but glare. Lu Chai smiled when he heard this. Since you trust us, I can promise you that day won't come. The Sea King waved his hand and said, That's enough. Hurry up and bring those illusion fish clansmen away. I'm annoyed to see them. I'll release them. Lu Chai nodded and said no more. He turned around and walked out of the palace. As for the people of the illusion fish clan, since the Sea King had promised, he would definitely not go back on his word. He believed in this. As he walked out of the palace, Lu Chai immediately found Huan Sha and the others staring at Lan Hushan. Their faces were filled with displeasure. At this moment, Lan Hushan was openly monitoring Huan Sha and the others. Lan Hushan immediately turned around and nodded at Lu Chai when he saw him. He then turned around and entered the palace. When Huan Sha and the others saw this, they quickly said to Lu Chai, How is it? Will he agree to release my people? Let's wait here for a while. He has agreed. Lu Chai immediately said. Huan Sha and the others heaved a sigh of relief upon hearing this. Yin Mai was the future of their illusionary fish clan. Now that they knew that he was about to be released, the stone weighing down on their hearts finally fell. While waiting, Huan Sha finally could not hold back his curiosity anymore. He asked in a low voice, Since we are a family now, can you tell me if the Sea King is a pawn of the player clan in the Underworld Chamber of Commerce? No, Lu Chai answered without hesitation. Huan Sha was in disbelief upon hearing this. When he thought about the Underworld Chamber of Commerce being hijacked in the Kowloon Ocean, he thought that the Sea King was quite pitiful. He was robbed by the Sharkbite fleet, and then he was robbed by the player clan. However, now that he thought about it, it was obvious that they had colluded. They did not look like enemies at all. When you join us, you will understand the significance of the Sea King. You will also understand that the player clan has never set overthrowing the Underworld Chamber of Commerce as our goal. Since you are not willing to become enemies with the Underworld Chamber of Commerce, why do you still want to offend the Underworld Chamber of Commerce? Huan Sha frowned slightly. He seemed very puzzled. How big is the Underworld Chamber of Commerce? One must have a long-term vision. Lu Chai's expression was indifferent when he said this. However, Huan Sha could clearly feel a domineering aura coming from Lu Chai. How big is the Underworld Chamber of Commerce? The goal of overthrowing the Underworld Chamber of Commerce is not long-term enough. Huan Sha felt unwell all over. At this moment, he felt that he had guessed correctly. There was really an incredible secret within the player clan. Otherwise, why would a super expert like the Empress choose to join them? Huan Sha was filled with anticipation when he thought that the Illusion Fish clan would soon be a part of it, and they were about to get a glimpse of the player clan's secret. While waiting, Yin Mai, who was badly battered, was brought out of the palace by Lan Hushan. At this moment, Yin Mai's eyes became wet when he saw Huan Sha and the clan elders. Just yesterday, when the Sea King beat him up, he told him that he would never let him out in this lifetime because no one could guarantee his safety if he was released. Yin Mai did not doubt this. If he were in the Sea King's shoes, he would never let him out either. After all, there would be no guarantee of his safety if he was released. How could he let him out? Therefore, Yin Mai was quite desperate at that time. He did not expect to be released now and see the clan leader and the clan elders. This made him feel like he had seen the light of day again. It was as if he had been reborn. I fulfilled my promise. Now it's your turn. Lu Chai looked at Huan Sha and said after glancing at Yin Mai, The Illusion Fish clan will not go back on our words. We will swear on our souls once we return to Beiki. Huan Sha replied solemnly. At this moment, Yin Mai, who was standing at the side, looked very surprised. "You're not the one who stood on the city gate waving his fists." Lu Chai turned his head and grinned at Yin Mai when he heard this. He did not say anything else. Huan Sha and the others were also very surprised when they heard what Yin Mai said. At that time, Yin Mai had emphasized the incident of a person waving his fists at the city gate and killing thousands of people without a sound. They did not expect that person to be Lu Chai. At this moment, they suddenly felt that Lu Chai was a lot more mysterious. Perhaps he was not as weak as they thought. After that, they walked out of XNMO Island under Lan Hushan's lead and arrived at the coast of XNMO Island. At this moment, Lan Hushan had a smile on his face. These few days, they had been living in fear because of the Illusion Fish clan. They did not expect the player clan to come and settle the matter. This made him even more certain that the player clan was an ally of the Mute Sea nation. Of course, the Sea King still did not admit it. After a few days of sailing, Lu Chai brought Huan Sha, Yin Mai, and the rest of the Illusion Fish clan to the Lioli coast. At this moment, the coast was already surrounded by players. Through Lu Chai's post on the forum, the players knew that the Illusion Fish clan would join Beiki today and become a part of the players' force. Hence, they gathered before Lu Chai's arrival, all wanting to witness this moment. At this moment, the demolition ship slowly docked at the Lioli coast. Huan Sha, Yin Mai, and the clan elders leaped from the warship and came to the front of the clan. "All clansmen, listen to my command. Next, recite the soul oath with me. From now on, the Illusion Fish clan will join Beiki and become a part of Beiki." Huan Sha's body floated in the air as he looked at his clansmen on the sea surface and announced loudly. His voice reverberated in the air through his spiritual power, reaching the ears of all the Illusion Fish clan members. They raised their heads and looked at their clan leader with a solemn expression. They already knew about this decision before they came to Beiki, so they were not surprised at this moment. Under the witness of the 6 paths of reincarnation, I, Huan Sha, swear. After that, Huan Sha and the others recited the soul oath at the Lioli coast. This oath was naturally obtained by Huan Sha from Lu Chai. Although he felt that this oath seemed to be very different from the one he knew, he still chose to believe it and led his clansmen to recite it. What they did not know was that this soul oath was not an oath to the 6 paths of reincarnation, but an oath to the war artifact that Lu Wu possessed. Their soul imprints also slowly appeared in the soul vault in the artifact space during the declaration. The moment the declaration was completed, the souls of all the Illusion Fish clan members were imprinted in the artifact space. From then on, there was no possibility of betrayal. Amidst the players' anticipation, the server announcement rang. Server announcement. All members of the Illusion Fish clan, number 214285, have officially joined Beiki as NPCs. Following the appearance of the server announcement, all the Illusion Fish clan members felt a huge suction coming from nowhere, causing them to lose their balance. Following that, the scene around them began to blur. When it became clear again, they found themselves in an unfamiliar space. There was no end to this place. There was no light, but everywhere was filled with light. They were just at the Lioli coast a moment ago, but now they were all teleported to another space. It was very strange. Just then, 2 figures appeared in the artifact space, attracting the attention of the Illusion Fish clan members. However, their figures were blurry and their faces could not be seen clearly. "Welcome to the player army and become a part of it." Looking at the Illusion Fish clan members, Lu Wu said with a smile, "Where is this place? And who are the 2 of you?" Huan Sha was very vigilant. He still did not understand what was going on. "I am the mastermind behind the player clan, and the person you're loyal to is also me," Lu Wu said in a pretentious manner. Upon hearing this, Huan Sha was truly shocked. Didn't we pledge our loyalty to the 6 paths of reincarnation? How do we end up pledging our loyalty to someone? And the mastermind behind the player clan, isn't that the person the Empress is loyal to? Thinking of this person's ability to teleport all of them to another space in an instant, Huan Sha felt that he had encountered a real big shot. Relax, don't be afraid. Next, I need to help you modify your bodies and input some new knowledge so that you can understand the players better and integrate into them better. Hearing about body modification, Huan Sha was very nervous, but he did not dare to refute. He opened his mouth, but still could not hold it in. Don't worry, this modification is only to digitize your bodies, and you will also obtain an ability that you can't even imagine. As for other things, there will be no changes. After saying this, Lu Wu did not bother to explain further. After all, digitizing the body was the key to resurrection. This was a process that all NPCs had to go through when they joined the player's camp. Moreover, even if he explained, Huan Sha would not understand. It was better to use the artifact to input this knowledge and let him understand directly. Lil Bailey, here, get to work. Okay, meet Shield Boss. Lil Bailey saluted Lu Wu, then turned around and waved at Huan Sha and the others. Suddenly, a large amount of soul power surged out of the soul coin vault and began to burn violently. One could imagine the amount of work needed to modify more than 200,000 Illusion Fish clan members in one go. It was obviously unrealistic to do it slowly without spending soul coins. Therefore, Lil Bailey chose to spend soul coins to speed up the process. Although this would consume a large amount of soul coins, it was no longer the early stage of development. They needed to be thrifty in the use of soul coins. Lu Wu could totally afford it. After all, he had the elite group of players to provide for the construction. At the end of the day, he could do whatever he wanted when he was rich. Chapter 6:18. This time, the entire Illusory Fish clan's transformation lasted for 2 whole days. When the transformation was over, Huan Sha and the others were shocked by the knowledge in their minds. When Lu Wu said that they would not experience any changes after the transformation, but they would obtain an extremely powerful ability, Huan Sha was still guessing what it would be. Now he knew. Unlimited resurrection, which meant an immortal body, an immortal soul, and unlimited regeneration of the physical body. To Huan Sha, such an ability was like stealing business from the 6 paths of reincarnation. But this seemingly unexplainable ability really allowed him to obtain it. At this moment, Huan Sha could not be more excited. With such an ability, there was nothing to be afraid of. He could not imagine who the mastermind was, to be able to give such an unexplainable ability so easily. After thinking about it, he felt that the mastermind might be one of the great emperors in charge of the underworld. At this moment, he finally understood why Lu Chai said that the player clan had never considered the Underworld Chamber of Commerce as a target. It was because the target was too small. Thinking about it now, Huan Sha could not agree more. To hell with the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. Trash. The huge amount of information in his mind made Huan Sha's heart swell up. He felt that the Illusion Fish clan had risen and he did not have to worry about the future anymore. However, after carefully reading through the subsequent content in his mind, he also understood the purpose of their existence after joining Beiki. Not to fight, but to help the player clan grow. Huan Sha was very pleased with this and did not have any thoughts of resistance. In fact, he was already tired of killing. But if he did not kill and plunder, sooner or later, the Illusion Fish clan would be overthrown and replaced by other forces. Hence, he and his clan had no choice but to do so. When killing became a necessity, they had to go on no matter what. It was not something that could be decided by personal preferences. In the end, it was all about staying alive. After completely understanding the information in his mind, Huan Sha let out a sigh of relief. He suddenly felt relaxed. It was also at this moment that Huan Sha made a decision. He would hand over the position of the clan leader to Yin Mai in advance. He might as well retire in Beiki. From the information in his mind, he learned a very useful piece of information. Soul coins could help him in his cultivation. Huan Sha had never thought that he could advance to the demigod realm, but now he had this thought. As long as he had soul coins, it wouldn't be difficult for him to advance to demigod. He could definitely do it. Just like the NPCs who joined Beiki previously, Illusory Killer had the idea of earning soul coins from the players to increase his strength. Now that the mastermind had given the Illusion Fish clan a storefront in the Mansion of the Dead, he could definitely make use of it. Although the Illusion Fish clan had to pay an 80% tax on the soul coins they earned, he didn't think that it was inappropriate. Instead, he felt that the person behind the scenes was very benevolent. The Illusion Fish clan's elders did not object to Huan Sha's suggestion to abdicate. At this time, they also received the same information about the divine artifact as Illusion Killer. They knew that since they had joined the player clan, their safety was guaranteed. There was no need to worry too much. Thus, the higher-ups of the Illusion Fish clan unanimously agreed to hand over the position of clan leader to Yanmai. After exiting the artifact space, the Illusion Fish clan followed the orders left in the minds of the mastermind and built their clan grounds in the area where Chan Na's mansion used to be. At the same time, the Illusion Fish clan began to prepare for a grand coronation ceremony for the new clan leader. After learning of this news, a large number of players came to join in the fun and took the initiative to bring all kinds of food. Soon, the coronation ceremony for the clan leader of the Illusion Fish clan turned into a huge gathering in Baiki. Even the NPCs of Baiki arrived. While congratulating the Illusion Fish clan, they began to freeload for food and drinks. At the same time, the players also began to inquire about the type of building that the Illusion Fish clan was going to build in the Mansion of the Dead. To this, Illusion Killer gave the players an answer, teaching of assassination and stealth techniques. Upon hearing this news, the assassin players were extremely excited. They felt that spring was coming. The mage players, on the other hand, had a bad feeling because the assassin players were the nemesis of the fragile mages. If a powerful assassin player sneaked over and stabbed them in the back, they would only be killed in seconds. When they heard that the assassin was going to strengthen his skills, their hearts sank. On the other hand, the warrior players were even more unhappy. We agreed to lie in the sewers together, but you assassins sneakily showed up. This is a blatant betrayal. However, the players' blessings toward the Illusion Fish clan were sincere. After joining this big family, they were family. There was no doubt about that. Ever since Tong Gua joined, every NPC had developed a relationship with the players. It could be said that they were friends in the game. On this day, the coronation ceremony and gathering of the new clan leader of the Illusion Fish clan lasted until dusk. The crowd had yet to disperse. As the players interacted with the Illusion Fish clan, they became familiar with each other while eating and drinking. At the same time, this was the first time the Illusion Fish clan felt such a relaxed atmosphere. They enjoyed the feeling of not having to worry about what would happen tomorrow. At this moment, Yanmai, who had just been crowned as the clan leader of the Illusion Fish clan, walked drunkenly out of the crowd that was still celebrating and walked toward the Lioli coast. After drinking a few barrels of the special Invincible Enhanced 1 cup with spirit wine given by the ladies of the Wood Spirit clan, Yanmai could not take it anymore, even though he had the strength of a ghost king. Although he could use the spiritual energy in his body to expel the alcohol, he did not do so. He enjoyed this relaxed atmosphere very much. The last time he came to Baiki, he came as a spy to investigate the background of the player clan for the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. He did not expect that not long after that, he would become a part of the player's camp and work for the person behind the scenes. Only now did he know that everything before was a scam created by the player clan to prank him. He also knew that the players had an extremely powerful ability called data analysis. In other words, his disguise in front of the players was a complete joke and completely useless. However, now that he thought about it, he was glad that he had been fooled. If he had not been fooled, the Illusion Fish clan would not have had the opportunity to join the players' camp and become a part of it. From Yanmai's point of view, this decision was absolutely correct. Unknowingly, Yanmai had arrived at the Lioli coast. As the cool sea breeze caressed his face, Yanmai's heart was suddenly filled with boundless pride. From today onwards, I am the clan leader of the Illusion Fish clan. From now on, I will lead the Illusion Fish clan to a better future. As he thought about this, his mind recalled the many ways to help the player clan grow and earn soul coins at the same time, suggested by the old clan leader, Illusory Killer. He began to think about how to choose and prepare for the next step of the Illusion Fish clan. King Bomb. Ha ha ha. Are you an idiot? Is Grandpa Tong Gua's title of God of Gamblers for nothing? At this moment, an arrogant roar interrupted Yin Mai's thoughts. He turned his head to look. He saw a group of people that he had seen during the coronation ceremony huddled together. They seemed to be doing something, and there were all kinds of food and drinks placed around them. It was a pleasant sight to behold. Out of curiosity, Yin Mai walked toward Tong Gua and the others. At this moment, Tong Gua, the Rock Ghost King, Xiao Tian, a lady from the Wood Spirit clan, and 2 players were playing cards by the coast. After Yin Mai had finished eating and drinking during the coronation ceremony, they gathered together and began their daily pastime. After shouting out King Bomb, Tong Gua's face was full of arrogance, as if he was the best in the world. He extended his hand toward the lady from the Wood Spirit clan and said, "Little lady from the Wood Spirit clan, hurry up and pay up. You've earned so much from me. This is retribution. I'm almost out of money." The extremely adorable lady from the Wood Spirit clan, who was dressed in green, nodded with a dejected look. She obediently opened the trade menu and handed over the soul coins that she had lost to Tong Gua. "And you're so rich. Can't you stop wasting time when you pay up?" Tong Gua pointed at the Rock Ghost King. The Rock Ghost King rolled his eyes, but he still opened the trade list. He entered a few numbers with a headache and clicked on the trade button. After collecting the money one by one, Tong Gua sat down arrogantly again. "This is the God of Gamblers. I'll let you guys have your way in the first few rounds, but now I'm ready to go on a killing spree." Hearing this, the Rock Ghost King and the others smiled from the bottom of their hearts. Although Tong Gua called himself the God of Gamblers of Beiki, in private, both the NPCs and the players called him the ATM machine. Winning was an occasional occurrence, but losing was Tong Gua's norm. He often lived a hard life because of this. However, Tong Gua never regretted it, and he even enjoyed it. The players even noticed a phenomenon. As long as Tong Gua's forging workshop opened on time, Tong Gua would undoubtedly lose all his money again. As one of the NPCs with the most personality, Tong Gua learned all the bad things from the players. He cursed, drank, and so on. He lived more like an evil force than the players. Now that he finally won, Tong Gua's arrogance surged uncontrollably. He grabbed the wine pot beside him and gulped down a few mouthfuls. "What are you guys doing?" Yin Mai, who had walked to the side, suddenly asked curiously. Tong Gua heard it and turned around. When he saw that it was Oates, a smile appeared on his face. "Yo, isn't this the new leader of the Illusion Fish clan? Do you want to play?" Yin Mai was curious when he heard this. "How do you play? Can you earn soul coins by playing this?" Tong Gua nodded matter-of-factly. "Of course, I just earned more than 3,000 soul coins. Come, sit down, I'll teach you. Since you've joined Beiki, how can you not experience the most unique and fun thing in Beiki?" Hearing this, Yin Mai nodded immediately. Driven by curiosity, he sat down beside Tong Gua. Tong Gua did not mind. He put his arm around Yin Mai's shoulder and began to explain how to play this thing with his own understanding. As he listened, Yin Mai was suddenly tempted. He was worried about how to earn a large number of soul coins for his clansmen. When he heard Tong Gua say that this thing could earn money quickly, he suddenly had the urge to join. Hence, under Tong Gua's lead, Yin Mai embarked on this path of no return. In the first few rounds, Yin Mai was particularly lucky. He earned soul coins from Tong Gua several times, which gave Tong Gua a headache. Unsurprisingly, Tong Gua was the first to lose all his soul coins. However, he was stubborn and insisted that Yin Mai was his disciple. He lost to him on purpose as a greeting gift. Meanwhile, Yin Mai was already beaming. This money came too quickly. I seem to have found a way to get rich. However, he soon changed his mind. As the Wood Spirit clan lady's luck soared, Yin Mai tasted failure and lost money. As the soul coins went by, his heart was filled with unwillingness. These soul coins were supposed to be mine, but now I've lost more than half of them. This is such a heartache. Hence, Yin Mai continued to play unwillingly. Gradually, he got carried away and could not extricate himself. The next morning, Yin Mai returned to the new land of the Illusion Fish clan with a haggard face. Huan Sha and the clan elders were dumbfounded when he told them a huge surprise. He had a debt of 80,000 soul coins outside. At that moment, Huan Sha suddenly felt that he should just leave this bastard at the Sea King's place and beat him to death. Chapter 619. Beiki, Mansion of the Dead. It was the third day after the Illusion Fish Clan officially joined the players' camp. The Illusion Fish Clan, who had familiarized themselves with the environment of Beiki, opened their own building in the Mansion of the Dead. Illusion Fish Assassination Club. Similar to the Medicine Refinery Guild, this building looked ordinary on the outside, but it had a huge space inside that could accommodate a large number of players. For this reason, Illusory Killer had selected 3,000 top experts from his clan and sent them to this building to be the players' skill instructors. After that, Illusory Killer went to the Wood Spirit clan and other NPCs to humbly ask for advice. Then, he came up with a fee that he thought was more feasible. At this time, there was a sign at the entrance of the newly opened Illusion Fish Assassination Club. The sign introduced the building's services and fees in detail. Illusion Fish Assassination Club. Building function. Provides skill and skill instruction in sneaking, assassination, and other aspects. Effectively improve personal ability. The fees are as follows. 1. Pay 50 soul coins to become a member of the Illusion Fish Assassination Club. You can train in the venue every day. There will be occasional lectures on assassination. 2. Pay an additional 200 soul coins to become a beginner member. You can apply for 3 private instruction sessions per month. Each session lasts 3 hours. 3. Pay an additional 500 soul coins to become a beginner member of the venue. You can apply for 10 private instruction sessions per month. Each session lasts 3 hours. 4. Pay an additional 3,000 soul coins to become an unlimited member of the venue. You can receive the Illusion Fish Clan's top assassination and sneaking skills. You can come to the venue at any time for one-on-one private instruction. You will also receive the Illusion Fish Clan's sneaking skill, guaranteed to be mastered. The fees for the specific skills instruction are as follows. Guaranteed to be mastered, not free illusion. Sneaking skill 1,000 soul coins Water Shadow. Underwater sneaking skill 1,000 soul coins Soul Spike. Assassination skill 2,000 soul coins Phantom Spike. Assassination skill 8,000 soul coins. The opening of the Illusion Fish Clan's new shop attracted the attention of many players, especially the assassin players. This was undoubtedly good news for the assassin players. Before the Illusion Fish Clan joined Beiki, the assassin players could only rely on themselves to learn assassination and sneaking skills. Other than the instructional videos of professional players on the forum, they had to rely on studying in the library to improve their skills. However, things are different now. They were about to have a skill mentor, and they could finally avoid many detours. They also felt that they could finally say goodbye to the sewers. On this day, a large number of assassin players signed up to join the Illusion Fish Assassination Club, bringing the Illusion Fish Clan their first wave of business. Seeing such a large influx of players, Illusory Kill was the happiest. After joining the players' camp, he realized that the currency used here was soul coins. Only soul coins could be used to trade with players and other NPCs. At that time, Illusory Killer felt that the Illusory Fish Clan was too poor to take out even a single soul coin. However, he finally didn't have to worry anymore. Their Illusion Fish Clan had successfully taken the first step. Although 80% of the Illusion Fish Clan's income would be taken by the mastermind, the remaining 20% was enough for the entire clan to use. But at the same time, Huan Sha felt extremely helpless. The reason for their helplessness was the new chief, Oats. Yen Mai was one of the clansmen that he thought highly of. Yen Mai was steady and considerate of the overall situation. In his eyes, he was the best candidate for the next chief. But who would have thought that this kid would actually dare to owe a debt of 80,000 soul coins when he had just become a clan leader? Huan Sha was so angry that he wanted to send him back to the Sea King and imprison him again. Most importantly, since Yen Mai was already the chief, the money he owed was naturally the Illusion Fish Clan's debt. There was no way they could disentangle themselves from this. Huansha had no choice but to pick a few treasures from the devoured sea. He humbly set up a stall in the mansion of the dead for a few days and sold some of the things that Huansha thought were very precious to the players. Only then did he repay Yin Mai's debt. Although the debt crisis had been resolved, in Huansha's opinion, since Yin Mai had made a mistake, he must be punished. In the end, the higher-ups of the Illusion Fish clan unanimously decided to temporarily remove Yin Mai from the position of chief and let him find a way to earn soul coins on his own. He would only return after he earned 80,000 soul coins to repay the debt. And so, on the first day of his coronation, a certain lowly new chief was removed from the stage. At this moment, in the mansion of the dead, Yin Mai, who had been chased out of the clan's land, was wandering around aimlessly. He was thinking about how to earn soul coins so that he could pay off his debt to the clan as soon as possible. Brother, do you want to learn the top-notch assassination techniques of our Illusion Fish clan? We can teach you one-on-one. The price is negotiable. What? You're a mage? Mages can learn it too, and they can assassinate others too. I heard that you're planning to go to sea. I am very familiar with the sea. Do I need a guide? The price is negotiable. Moving corpses? Where is it? Can I go? I'm very strong. Do you still lack an assistant when it comes to refining medicine? Along the way, Yin Mai felt so lowly. When he was crowned the leader of the Illusion Fish clan yesterday, he was still thinking about the future development of the Illusion Fish clan and how to earn soul coins. In the end, after a whole night, not only did he not earn any money, but he also owed 80,000. He even had to ask the old clan leader to set up a stall for him to pay up. At this moment, he had even fallen to the streets and was just short of selling himself. In just one day, Oats was on a roller coaster that plunged from the peak of fish life to the bottom. Oatmeal was so excited that he almost cried. 80,000 soul coins. Thinking of the huge amount of money he owed, Oats felt dispirited. Since the NPCs did not have the ability to earn soul coins by killing monsters like the players, Oats could not think of any other way to earn money quickly other than working. Of course, Oats did not intend to let the clansmen work to pay off the debt he owed. Since he was the new clan leader, although he was temporarily stepping down, he had to be responsible. However, Oats had no idea how to make up for the loss of 80,000 soul coins in the clan. He wandered around the mansion of the dead for a while. During this period, he tried all sorts of lowly jobs, but none of the players and NPCs paid any attention to him. Even when he went to the pharmacy opened by the Great Dragon Guild to apply for a job, the shopkeeper, Feng Ling, suspected that he was there to steal the secret formula and chased him out. As the new clan leader of the Illusion Fish clan, Yin Mai felt so lowly that he had fallen to this state. As he wandered, Oats arrived at Tong Gua's forging room. Without thinking too much, Oats pushed open the door and walked in, ready to apply for a job. Since Tong Gua's forging room was the area where high-end weapons were forged and each custom-made weapon cost a lot of money, there were usually not many customers. When Oats arrived, there was no one in Tong Gua's forging room except for Tong Gua, who was drinking. When he entered the room, Oats was stunned to see Tong Gua drinking on the bed. Isn't this the bastard who made me owe 80,000 soul coins? At this moment, Tong Gua thought that there was a customer. He raised his head and was shocked to see that it was Oats. Why are you here? Taking a deep breath, Oats resisted the urge to fight with the goose. He forced a smile and said, "Don't worry about it." He smiled and said, "Are you still hiring? I'm here to apply for a job. The price is negotiable." Didn't the Illusion Fish clan open an assassination club? It seems like you're earning quite a lot today. Why are you here to apply for a job? Tong Gua was stunned. Looking at Oats' helpless face and hesitating to answer, Tong Gua suddenly understood the reason. After all, after he lost all his money last night, he witnessed Oats's gradual degeneration. Not only did he lose all the money he won at the beginning, but he also borrowed money to continue losing. In Tong Gua's eyes, this was very courageous. Tong Gua had only met 2 people in Beiki who could not bow to failure and continue losing after borrowing money. One was himself, and the other was Oats. Thinking of this, Tong Gua showed a sympathetic expression. He stood up and said, "Brother Oats, it's not that I don't want to help you. In fact, I don't have much business recently. I don't even have enough soul coins to spend, let alone hiring employees, unless... Oates could not help but sigh when he heard Tong Gua saying that he was not hiring. However, when he heard the word unless, he suddenly became energetic and waited for a turning point. Unless you work for me for free. Oates was stunned for a few seconds when he heard this. He then turned around and walked out of the room. Hey, Brother Oates, don't be in such a hurry to leave. I actually have a way to help you earn money. Oates stopped in his tracks when he heard this. He turned around and looked at Tong Gua suspiciously. Really? Of course. Tong Gua took out a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to Oates. Look, this is a good place to earn money. Oates was puzzled. He took the paper, spread it out, and scanned it. After a while, Oates raised his head and looked at Tong Gua in surprise. The Wood Spirit Clan is recruiting employees, and they have to be in the Ghost King realm? Tong Gua nodded and chuckled. That's right. This is the first time the Wood Spirit Clan is recruiting from the outside. The Wood Spirit Clan is the most profitable place in Baiki, so we can totally go there to scam them and earn some soul coins along the way. What Tong Gua said was not wrong at all. The most profitable place among the NPCs in Baiki was never the Rock Ghost King's Apothecary Association or Tong Gua's Forging Workshop. It was the Wood Spirit Clan's wine chain. Although the Wood Spirit Clan's products, wine, were not as profitable as the Rock Ghost King's elixirs or Tong Gua's Forging Workshop, their sales volume was huge. More importantly, the Wood Spirit wine was also a best-selling product in the other servers. Tong Gua and the Rock Ghost King could not compete with them in this regard. After all, the other servers had a different way of growing. They did not pay as much attention to apothecary and forging as the main server did. However, all the players were the same when it came to eating and drinking. The Wood Spirit Clan started early. Their Wood Spirit wine had a good reputation in all the servers, and the sales volume had been increasing. Therefore, from Tong Gua's point of view, even if half of the Wood Spirit Clan's income would be taken away by a certain cat behind the scenes, the Wood Spirit Clan was still very rich. Tong Gua found out about the Wood Spirit Clan recruiting employees from outside when he was playing cards with a lady from the Wood Spirit Clan. He also received a recruitment notice from them. As for the reason for the recruitment, Tong Gua asked curiously at that time. According to the lady from the Wood Spirit Clan, the cause was that a player had fished up a metal box when he was diving in the Kuelong Ocean. After opening it, he found a winemaking recipe inside. After returning to Baiki, the player brought the winemaking recipe to the Wood Spirit Clan, hoping that they could help to appraise its price. As a result, they found out that it was a recipe for heavenly brew. It recorded in detail an extremely advanced winemaking process. Therefore, they immediately negotiated with the player and bought it at the price of 50,000 soul coins. However, when they studied the production process of heavenly brew recorded in the recipe, they found a problem. Since the Wood Spirit Clan did not like to cultivate, their average strength was on the low side. As a result, there was not a single powerhouse in the clan who could support the brewing process of heavenly brew. Left with no other choice, the Wood Spirit Clan decided to recruit workers from outside. After receiving the news, Tong Gua was immediately prepared to swindle food and drinks. Moreover, after knowing that there was such a high-quality wine like heavenly brew, he had long been itching to try it. He was ready to be the first to taste it. At this moment, when he saw Yan Mai, who was equally poor and dejected, he could not help but think of dragging him along to the Wood Spirit Clan to make some quick money. Chapter 620. Chi Dragon, Drunken Spring Mountain. It was already night. A bright moon hung high in the sky, shining down bright moonlight on the ground through the lush branches and leaves. A gust of wind blew, and the branches and leaves rustled. Bam! At this moment, a shadow fell from a century-old tree. Then, the sound of a heavy object landing on the ground broke the quiet atmosphere of the mountain and startled several turtle doves. A moment later, the figure slowly stood up from the side of the tree. He first raised his head to look at the bright moon above his head, then looked at his surroundings and muttered with a dumbfounded expression. "Where am I? Who the hell am I?" Burp! As he spoke, the man suddenly burped, and the strong smell of alcohol came out of his mouth. With the help of the moonlight, one could see that the man's face was red. Obviously, he had drunk too much. At this moment, he had even forgotten who he was and where he was. After standing still and thinking for a moment, the man scratched his head and realized that he still couldn't remember any useful information. He tried to touch his body and found that there was nothing except the clothes he was wearing and the wine gourd hanging on his waist. So, he reached out to take the wine gourd hanging on his waist and shook it. Immediately, the sound of the liquid shaking was heard, which also evoked the desire in the bottom of his heart. Next, he pulled out the stopper and sniffed it. Then, he couldn't help but drink a few mouthfuls. As the thick wine entered his throat, he felt as if all the blood in his body was ignited and surged through his body. Then, he fell down again and snored as if he had forgotten everything. At noon the next day, the sound of birds around woke up the man who had been unconscious for a long time. He sat up, opened his eyes, and rubbed his messy hair. His expression was still blank, and it was obvious that he hadn't woken up yet. Just like last night, he first murmured, "Who am I? Where am I?" and then began to observe himself. Then, his attention fell on the wine gourd again. However, this time, there was no more wine in the gourd, and the man didn't succeed in drinking it. Just like that, as he sat quietly, a hint of clarity returned to his eyes, and he gradually remembered who he was. "So my name is Chu Zue." "What good name, he." Chu Zue, who hadn't woken up yet, murmured with a smile. After sitting quietly for a while, the memories came flooding back. It was also at this moment that his expression suddenly changed. Then, he decisively got up from the ground, hurriedly walked to the side of the mountain road, and madly ran to the top of the mountain. Oh no, my wine." Although Chu Zue looked to be in his 40s or 50s when he ascended the mountain, he seemed to be flying. Every time he kicked, he would cross 3 or 4 steps as he rushed to the top of the mountain. After about half an hour of rushing, Chu Zue suddenly changed direction when he was close to the top of the mountain and rushed to the waterfall on the side. Arriving at the edge of the cliff, he stomped hard on the ground, and his body soared up like a swallow. He passed through the rapids of the waterfall and crashed into the back of the waterfall. The scene of crashing into the cliff didn't happen. What appeared in front of Chu Zue was a water curtain cave. The inside was full of moss and vines. Flowers bloomed under his feet. The interior was full of vitality. After entering the water curtain cave, Chu Zue hurriedly ran forward. After turning a few forks, he came to an empty space. "Ah, my wine." When he saw the red-hot iron pot in the empty space, Chu Zue let out a hysterical scream. Holding on to the one-in-a-million possibility, Chu Zue hurriedly approached the iron pot. He lowered his head and looked into the pot, as if hoping that there was still some wine that hadn't evaporated. However, the reality was that there was not a single drop of wine left in the red-hot iron pot. At this moment, it was like a bolt from the blue. For Chu Zue, this was a fatal blow that he couldn't bear. He subconsciously slumped to the ground, feeling that his life was hopeless. He had brewed this pot of wine for 3 years. 3 years. During this period, he had gone through repeated fermentation, mixing, distillation, pouring it into the mountain spring, refining it with flames, and so on. The procedures were complicated. It could be said that Chu Zue had used all his energy for the past 3 years to brew this pot of wine. For this, during the brewing period, Chu Zue had searched the entire Drunken Spring Mountain and found all kinds of rare herbs to blend into it. It could be said that he had put in a lot of effort. However, at this moment, everything had turned into bubbles. Thinking of the experience a few days ago, Chu Zue couldn't help but want to slap himself. Just 3 days ago, when a new pot of wine was about to be successfully brewed, he happily prepared to drink a few mouthfuls to celebrate. However, once he drank, he couldn't stop. During this period, Chu Zue got drunk 3 times and woke up 3 times. The whole time, he was in a dazed state. It was an endless cycle. At this moment, if it weren't for the fact that the wine in the pot had been finished, Chu Zue felt that he might be able to repeat it endlessly. In fact, he knew that he loved wine as much as his life. Therefore, in order to brew this pot of spirit spring wine, he hadn't touched a drop of wine for 3 years, so that he wouldn't be muddle-headed. Every day, He hung a wine gourd on his waist to satisfy his eye cravings. Such restraint wasn't because he had strong self-control, but because Spirit Spring wine was his lifelong dream. It was a special brewing method that generations of Chu clan had been trying. According to the records, Chu clan was once a member of the cultivation world and had brewed countless famous spirit wines. Although it was the end of days and spirit chi had dried up, their Chu clan hadn't weakened. Instead, they had found a brand new path that allowed them to be different from ordinary people in this end of days. 100 Flower Health Wine, Tiger Bloodbone Wine, Turtle Longevity Wine, and so on. Even though spirit chi had dried up, their Chu clan had still found a way to strengthen themselves by brewing wine from the end of days. In reality, Chu Zue looked like he was in his 40s or 50s, but he was actually close to 100 years old. All of this was the miraculous effect brought about by these special wines. And the Spirit Spring wine he brewed this time was the best wine among all the wines passed down in the Chu clan, excluding those that required spirit chi to brew. Drinking this wine would not only extend one's lifespan by more than 10 years, but the quality of one's body would also be refined, and one would be immune to all diseases. Therefore, to Chu Zue, for this pot of good wine, he didn't mind enduring for 3 years. During his 3 years of brewing wine, although Chu Zue had thought of giving up countless times, he still gritted his teeth and persevered. However, just 3 days ago, when his dream was about to succeed, Chu Zue had the urge to drink a few mouthfuls to celebrate, and he felt that he had been holding it in for 3 years. Although he hadn't quit drinking, it had been 3 years. Now, when he drank, he could at least control himself, so it wasn't a big problem. But the reality was the complete opposite. The moment his tongue touched the wine, for Chu Zue, it was a sublimation of his soul. At that moment, Chu Zue forgot himself and threw everything to the back of his mind. There was only one thought in his mind. Drink. Drink to your heart's content. There is wine today, so get drunk today. Who cares if tomorrow is right or wrong? Drinking, this kind of intoxication, was what was needed. What was wine? Once drunk, 1,000 worries would be solved. If one was not intoxicated, how could one be drunk? And how could one be happy? Chu Zue felt that his idea at the time was not bad. It was very nice and in line with the usual thinking of the descendants of the Chu clan when they drank. But now he wanted to smash his own head. This sleep went on for 3 days. The Spirit Spring wine he had been working hard for 3 years and was about to be successfully brewed had gone up in smoke. Not even a drop was left, and he didn't even get to taste it. Thinking of this, he collapsed to the ground, his eyes gradually losing focus. He had nothing to live for. Chapter 6:21. What was the happiest thing in life? Everyone could give a different answer to this question, but the answer would definitely be the strongest desire in that person's heart. And Chu Zue's greatest desire was wine. He enjoyed the pleasure of the wine flowing down his throat, indulging in the hazy beauty brought by the wine. In the moment of intoxication, his thoughts and vision blurred, as if there was nothing else but happiness. Wine could bring many benefits, but could also bring many disadvantages. But one thing never changed. In the moment of intoxication, the drunkard would definitely throw away all the burdens he carried and become his true self. This was a release of emotions. In such a state, good and evil were unpredictable. So the debate about wine had never stopped since ancient times. Some people said that it was a bad thing, that it would corrupt people, and then there was the saying that drunkenness would cause trouble. But others said that it was a good thing. Most of those ancient literati had left behind beautiful lines through the ages in their intoxication, and they had a long history, adding a thick and heavy stroke to history and culture. But whether it was getting drunk to solve 1,000 worries, or getting drunk to make one's worries worse, the difference between good and bad could never be determined by one person's point of view. And as a descendant of the Chu family, Chu Zue also had his own point of view, which was that other people's point of view meant nothing. There was only one simple reason why he drank. It was delicious. As for those who caused trouble after drinking, or those who had a burst of inspiration after drinking, Chu Zue thought there was only one reason. He hadn't drunk enough. As a veteran drunkard, he was in a state of intoxication all year round, so he knew very well what a truly drunk person was like. In such a state, things like lying drunk on the battlefield, getting drunk by the lamp, or asking the sky with a glass of wine would all be fleeting. At that moment, the thoughts in one's mind would become very simple. Who am I? Where the F***ck am I? In Chu Zue's eyes, this was true drunkenness. It would not disturb others, nor would there be a burst of inspiration. As for defining wine as good or bad, it was meaningless to him. Those people weren't drinking. They were purely using drinking as a guide to achieve their goals. Drinking for profit at the table, drinking for desire in the noisy bar, etc. In Chu Zue's eyes, these were all F***king hoodlums to wine. And Chu Zue was such a person who truly loved drinking. He had been exposed to alcohol since he was young. The first time he drank alcohol was when he secretly drank the new wine from his father's wine jar. That was the first time he got drunk. Because of this, he slept until late at night and even forgot to go to school. His parents and teacher were so scared that they searched for him for the whole day. That was also the first time he was beaten because of alcohol. But after tasting the taste of the wine, Chu Zue could not let it go. From then on, he would think of ways to secretly drink the wine of his father or other elders. Therefore, his concept of wine had been very simple since he was young. He just wanted to drink it because it tasted good. Until now, this concept was still Chu Zue's most intuitive definition of wine. As for this celestial spring wine that he had painstakingly brewed for 3 years, he did not touch a single drop of wine during this period. It was all for the sake of drinking the wine that he had never tasted before, the wine that the Chu family claimed to be the best to drink after the end of the Age of Chaos. Therefore, he drank not for profit, not for fame, and not for anything else. He drank simply and happily. But now, looking at the red-hot iron pot, Chu Zue's eyes were listless. He felt as if his body had been hollowed out. This feeling was like a collector who had painfully spent a lot of money to buy the missing parts of a rare treasure. He had spent a lot of effort, but when he had gathered all the missing parts of the treasure, he had lost it. That kind of heartache was indescribable, but suffocating. At least that was how Chu Zue felt at the moment. At this moment, even breathing had become difficult. He lay limply on the ground, even thinking of dying. Oh, Celestial Spring, I've waited for you for 3 years, but you're gone now. My heart hurts so much. Looking at the iron pot, Chu Zue murmured like a child, as if he had lost his most beloved toy. In fact, he had thought of personally brewing a pot of Celestial Spring wine 20 years ago. But at that time, he could not resist drinking for less than a month. In the end, he failed at the last step. After that, he tried several more times, but all of them ended in failure. In the end, it was because he was too addicted to wine. For Chu Zue, he could go a day without eating, but he could not go a day without drinking. In fact, that was exactly what he did. Because the wine he brewed was rich in nutrients, even if he did not eat, there would not be anything wrong with his body. Instead, with the nourishment of the wine brewed with a special method, his body was still strong and healthy. It was also in these 3 years that in order to brew the Celestial Spring wine, Chu Zue restrained his drinking behavior. He relied on picking wild fruits in the mountains to satisfy his hunger, and occasionally went down the mountain to eat a good meal in the modern city. And 3 years ago, Chu Zue ate wine as if it were a meal. So for Chu Zue, brewing the Celestial Spring wine for these 3 years was a great effort. The more he thought about it, the more his heart ached. Trembling, Chu Zue got up and hobbled to the side. He picked up one of the wine gourds on the ground and shook it a few times. After confirming that there was wine inside, he pulled out the cork and took a big gulp. As the wine entered his throat, Chu Zue's body finally stopped trembling because of his sadness. The tipsiness in his body that had not yet subsided grew again with the new wine. At this moment, his vision gradually became hazy. The wine he brewed was not strong, but it was intoxicating. Even with Chu Zue's physique, after a few mouthfuls, he could not hold on any longer. He staggered 2 steps and fell heavily to the ground. My troubles fade, my troubles fade. As he murmured, his eyelids became heavy. In his drunken haze, Chu Zue gradually forgot his current troubles. The wine entered his heart and turned into tears of longing. As for who he missed, the celestial spring wine. A moment later, the cave was filled with thunderous snores. Chu Zue, who had just woken up, fell asleep again. In his dream, he drank the celestial spring wine and tasted the spirit chi wine brewed by countless ancestors. At that moment, he felt so happy. His only regret was that the wine seemed to be tasteless. In the blink of an eye, it was the next day. After waking up, Chu Zue fell into a daze again. After smacking his lips twice, Chu Zue asked 3 philosophical questions. Who am I? Where do I come from? Where do I go? There's a gourd here. It looks so familiar. Chu Zue's law of drunkenness infinite loop was activated at this moment. However, the side effect was that his perception of time would become very blurry. When he woke up again, another day had passed. In his daze after waking up, Chu Zue wanted to grab the wine gourd in front of him again. At this moment, a pair of hands reached out and took the wine gourd away. Then, Chu Zue felt his head being patted. A chill that penetrated his heart spread from the top of his head to his entire body. He couldn't help but shiver, and the drunkenness in his body instantly dissipated. The moment his eyes regained clarity, Chu Zue found a kind-looking, white-haired man standing in front of him. This person exuded an otherworldly aura, as if he was a human immortal. He couldn't help but stare in a daze. As his consciousness gradually recovered, Chu Zue suddenly remembered who this person was. Peak of Wind Snow Mountain, Ghost Fate Sect Hidden Sage, Qi Ming. He could be considered familiar with this person. He was one of the good friends of his deceased father when he was still alive. Sect Master Qi, is that you? Thinking of this, Chu Zue asked in a low voice. That's right. Qi Ming smiled faintly and said. Hearing Qi Ming's answer, Chu Zue revealed an expression as if he had expected it. In fact, Chu Zue had long forgotten how long it had been since they last met, but it had been at least more than 10 years. But at this moment, in Chu Zue's eyes, the appearance of this ghost fate sect master hadn't changed at all even after so many years, which really amazed him. Sect Master Qi, what can I do for you? Rumor has it that you're at the peak of the snow mountain and won't come out until you comprehend the true meaning of cultivation. Hearing this, Qi Ming didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, It's been more than 20 years. How have you been? I've come to you this time because I have something important to ask of you. Hearing this, Chu Zue was even more confused. You want my help? Are you serious? Chu Zue knew very well what he was capable of. Apart from his winemaking skills, he was completely useless. Nothing could be compared to this sage in front of him, so he didn't understand why the sage would look for him. Hearing this, Qi Ming nodded with a smile. Here's the thing. Recently, a winemaking competition will be held. The prizes will be of great help to my cultivation, so I want to ask you to come out and help me win this championship. I know you have the ability. Winemaking competition? Since when does our cultivation world have such a thing? Chu Zue looked very surprised. All of a sudden, he felt that he had slept for too long and was confused. As a winemaking family, he had never heard of any winemaking competition, because in the cultivation world, only the Chu family was qualified to hold such a competition. No one else was qualified, and in the cultivation world, only the Chu family was a winemaking family. Seeming to see Chu Zue's confusion, Qi Ming immediately explained. When Qi Ming explained, Chu Zue listened carefully at first, but then he was dumbfounded. Battle? Game? A winemaking competition in the game. After hearing Qi Ming's explanation, Chu Zue couldn't help muttering in a low voice. Sect Master Qi, you're old, and I'm not young anymore. Don't joke with me. I'm not in a good mood now. I can't laugh. Chu Zue's reaction was actually within Qi Ming's expectation, so he immediately said, No amount of explanation is better than trying it yourself. Let's go. I'll treat you to some good wine. Hearing the word, good wine, Chu Zue, who was depressed, suddenly became excited. Sect Master Qi, are you serious? What good wine is it? Wood spirit wine. What kind of wine is this? Why have I never heard of it? Chu Zue was stunned. Good wine in the game. Sec Master Chi, I still have something to do, so I won't be going. Hearing that it was wine in the game, Chu Zue's enthusiasm faded, and he immediately felt tasteless. In his opinion, he was already in his 90s. Why would he still play games? It was simply childish. Moreover, he couldn't understand why Qi Ming, who had a firm belief in cultivation, would play games in the mortal world. Could it be that he was possessed by the devil in his cultivation? Thinking of this, Chu Zue cast a pitiful look at Qi Ming. Chu Zue, if you believe me, then come with me. I won't let you down. You're a winemaker. That place is very suitable for you. I also believe that your winemaking skills will definitely shine there. Looking at Chu Zue, who had lost interest, Qi Ming couldn't help but persuade him again. Hearing Qi Ming say that he was a winemaker, Chu Zue couldn't help but look at the iron pot at the side. His expression suddenly became lifeless. I'm just an alcoholic, not a winemaker. I'm not worthy. Chapter 6:22. Seeing how dispirited Chu Zue was, Qi Ming couldn't help but ask curiously, wanting to know what he had experienced. Chu Zue didn't hide anything either. He told them about how he had been unconscious for several days after getting drunk, and how he had failed to brew the spirit spring wine. After understanding the specific reason, Qi Ming couldn't help but shake his head and smile. The bloodline of your Chu family, your grandfather was like this, and so was your father. Even now, you still haven't changed. You can actually get drunk for 3 days and 3 nights in a row. You're really something. Hearing that, Chu Zue nodded helplessly. Actually, it's not just my father and my grandfather. Our Chu family once had an ancestor who was drunk in the wine cellar for 2 consecutive years. At that time, everyone in the family thought that he had disappeared. This record has not been broken until now. Qi Ming, what an excellent inheritance, Qi Ming thought to himself. At this moment, he finally understood why Chu Zue looked so disappointed. It turned out that he had just suffered a mental blow. However, this made Qi Ming even more determined to bring Chu Zue to battle. That was because the spirit Qi there was abundant, and there were many heaven and earth spiritual materials that couldn't be found in the real world. Therefore, in Qi Ming's opinion, that was the place where he could display his talents. Being cooped up in this deep mountain and leading a befuddled life was truly a waste of one's strength. Thinking of this, Qi Ming immediately said, "The immortal spring wine might be the best wine in this age of chaos, but it's not worth mentioning in my eyes." Seeing Chu Zue raise his head in astonishment, Qi Ming continued, "Your father and I are friends. If you trust me, I will bring you to see the real spirit wine." Upon hearing the word spiritual wine, Chu Zue couldn't help but ask, "This is the age of chaos. There are no spiritual plants, so where would spiritual wine come from? Could it be that this is the game you were talking about?" Qi Ming nodded and said, "You'll know after you try. If you think you can't do it, come back. I won't stop you then." Chu Zue was silent for a moment as he stared at the serious Qi Ming. His gaze finally stopped on the empty wok, and his dejected expression finally changed. "Seventh Sect Leader, I promise you that I will go and take a look." Hearing Chu Zue's answer, Qi Ming finally revealed a smile on his face, and then he took out a phone out of nowhere and dialed a number. A moment later, the call went through. "Hey, Grandpa, what can I do for you?" "Prepare another gaming chamber and put it next to my room. I'll bring a guest back tonight." On the other end of the phone, Qi Ming's grandson, Qi Lu, was stunned when he heard this. Grandpa was getting crazier and crazier when it came to playing games. Last time, he paid for it. Could it be that he had made an appointment with an online friend in the game? He was already more than 100 years old, yet he was still addicted to the internet. How scary. After making the decision, Qi Ming brought Chu Zue down the mountain and came to their current residence, a lakeside villa. At this time, the interior had already been tidied up, and the new room had also been filled with gaming pods. Knowing that Chu Zue still had a lot of doubts, Qi Ming did not explain anything. He brought him straight to the room that he had arranged for him. After teaching him how to use the gaming chamber, he brought him into the game. After watching the entrance cinematics and choosing their characters, the moment he entered the game, Chu Zue was shocked by the 100% realism of the game just like every other player who came into contact with the game for the first time. At this moment, he only had one thought. Had modern technology developed to such an extent? At this time, Chuzue, who was at the starting point of the Mansion of the Dead, observed his surroundings in shock, trying to find a flaw in the game. However, be it the details of the wind blowing the grass or other aspects of observation, everything in front of him was almost perfect. There was no trace of the game at all. In fact, Chuzue was not the only one who was carefully observing his surroundings at this moment. There were also a few newbie players who had just entered the game. Their expressions were very similar, and they were all shocked by such a realistic world. When the veteran players who passed by saw this scene, they would smile without saying, and they also understood why these newbies were like this. Because when they first entered the game, it was the same. As he was carefully observing his surroundings, Chuzue suddenly heard a game notification. Game notification. Player Chi Ming has sent you a friend request. Do you accept? After a brief moment of shock, Chuzue clicked confirm, and a voice call request popped up. Game notification. Friend Chi Ming has sent a voice call. Do you accept? After Chuzue clicked confirm, Chi Ming's voice appeared in his ears. Wait for me where you are. I'll be right there. Okay. Chuzue replied immediately. While waiting for Chi Ming, Chuzue's heart was filled with curiosity and doubt. Although he had already discovered the magic of this game, he still could not understand why a game that was only 100% realistic would be so highly praised by Chi Ming, who was dedicated to cultivation. At this moment, a player carrying a pot of wine walked past Chuzue, and the faint fragrance of wine also swept past the tip of Chuzue's nose. For Chuzue, who loved and knew wine, he could determine the quality of this pot of wine from the fragrance of the wine. At this moment, his expression was like that of a husky, and he quickly stepped forward to stop the player. The player who was blocked stopped in his tracks, looking very surprised. What's the matter? Friend, the pot of wine in your hand, can I have a taste? Chuzue opened his mouth with a look of longing. No, if you want to drink it, buy it yourself. It's very expensive. The player shook his head decisively, and then pushed Chuzue, who was blocking his way to the side. Seeing this, Chuzue was about to continue speaking, but the force from the man's arm made him lose his balance, and he almost fell to the ground. By the time he steadied himself, the man had already walked past him and continued forward. Although he was shocked by the man's strength, Chuzue couldn't help but chase after him again due to his desire for good wine. However, just as he took a step, he was stopped by a figure. The person who came was Chi Ming, who told him to wait where he was. At this moment, Chi Ming's appearance was completely different from reality. He was wearing a black Taoist robe, holding a blood-colored bead in his left hand, and there was a strange mark on his forehead, exuding a cold and gloomy aura. Seeing Chi Ming, Chuzue hurriedly said, Sect Leader Chi, I have something urgent. I'll look for you later. As he spoke, he was about to chase after the player who had already walked far away. However, just as he took a step sideways, he was stopped by Chi Ming again. Are you looking for this? As he spoke, Chi Ming picked up the wood spirit wine he had just bought from the auction house and shook it in front of Chuzue's eyes. Seeing the same pot of wine in the man's hand, Chuzue was stunned, and then he hurriedly took the wine pot. After he couldn't wait to pull out the wine cork, a light and elegant fragrance filled the tip of his nose. At this moment, Chuzue's expression became extremely intoxicated. Without the slightest hesitation, he decisively picked up the wine pot and drank a few mouthfuls. The mellow liquid slid over the tip of his tongue, moistened his throat, slid down his throat, and floated in his abdomen. The fragrance slowly drifted into his nose. At this moment, it was as if all the pores in his body opened up with the breath. This was a kind of wine that Chuzue had never tasted before. With just these 2 mouthfuls of wine, Chuzue knew that Chi Ming didn't lie to him. This trip down the mountain was worth it. After closing his eyes to savor the taste, Chuzue opened his eyes again. The depression on his face was swept away, and his entire aura changed. Good wine. This is what you wanted, Chi Ming said with a smile. Hearing that, Chuzue nodded excitedly and took another sip. After a while, he said, This wine is really the most delicious wine I've ever tasted in my life. Although the wine is delicious, it has its shortcomings. What a pity. Oh, hearing this, Chi Ming was a little surprised, and he immediately asked, "What are the shortcomings you mentioned?" Hearing that, Chu Zue took another sip and said, "The winemaker's skills need to be improved. Although many spiritual materials were used, the winemaking skills are still lacking. The wine still has the taste of herbs, and several flavors are not completely mixed. This is the wine's fault." Hearing that, not only was Chi Ming not surprised, he even nodded matter-of-factly. In fact, although the Wood Spirit clan's fine wine was very popular among the players, there was wine that was better than the Wood Spirit clan's. He had drunk better wine at the Sea King's place. Moreover, before the Wood Spirit clan joined the players' camp, they had always focused on healing and medical treatment. This was their racial talent. However, the racial talent of healing was useless to the players, because the players' lives were worthless. No matter how serious their injuries were, it was not worth treating. On the contrary, the spiritual wine that they brewed using spiritual materials, because of the huge difference in taste and the enhancement of spiritual materials, had become the most popular product in the wine category in the auction house at the current stage. And the Wood Spirit clan had devoted themselves to the process of brewing the Wood Spirit wine for only 3 years. But Chu Zue was different. From Chi Ming's point of view, Chu Zue's bloodline had devoted themselves to the study of winemaking, which had been passed down for thousands of years. Their knowledge of wine had reached an extremely high level. Therefore, when he heard Chu Zue say that the winemaker's skills needed to be improved, Chi Ming was not surprised at all. After all, the Chu family's bloodline brewed spiritual wine at the very beginning. It was only when the Age of Doom came that the Chu family's bloodline changed their wine recipe and walked a path of cultivation in the Age of Doom. Therefore, this was also one of the reasons why Chi Ming came to Chu Zue. Chu Zue had many spiritual wine brewing recipes passed down by the Chu family. In reality, they could not be brewed due to the lack of spiritual materials, but they could be realized here. Looking at Chu Zue, who was drinking the Wood Spirit wine, Chi Ming took out a piece of paper from the space and handed it to Chu Zue. Chu Zue was curious and reached out to take it. The first wine tasting conference, Frowny Face organizer, Wood Spirit clan, venue, Lioli Coast, content. With the development of Beiki, many other types of wine have emerged in addition to our clan's Wood Spirit wine. The wine culture of the entire Beiki has flourished during this period, constantly improving and improving. In order to deepen the communication between our peers, the Wood Spirit clan hereby invites all friends in the Beiki winemaking circle to participate in the wine tasting conference organized by our clan. Together, we will discuss the future direction of Beiki's winemaking industry and select the champion of the first wine tasting conference. For this, our clan has set up rich prizes, and we look forward to your arrival. Clan leaders quote, #dish. Let me briefly describe the content above. Recently, there have been a lot of peers competing for business. I think it's time to suppress them and let you know who's number one with Spirit Clan's angry face. JPG, Chapter 623. However, the Wood Spirit clan did not give up on their research. After all, they had only heard of heavenly brewed wine. How could they be satisfied if they did not try it? At that time, the Wood Spirit clan did not take it seriously. Instead, they thought that since it was a heavenly brewed wine, its effect must be very strong. In the follow-up investigation, Emo Xiaoxin had a new speculation from the summary of various books. I'm experienced and knowledgeable. Don't think that I'm just a blacksmith. I'm very capable. Tong Guam muttered in dissatisfaction. Its function was to suppress the souls of the dead soldiers underground so that they could not escape. They would accompany and protect the owner of the tomb forever. Moreover, the book also pointed out that the owner of the tomb must have been a super overlord of the sea region. Otherwise, he would not have been qualified to be buried in this way. Therefore, the Wood Spirit clan had no choice but to give up. This could be verified from many aspects. The first thing he did after returning to Beiki was to open the treasure chest. In Beiki, the Wood Spirit clan was undoubtedly the one who knew the most about wine. Therefore, Mo Xiaoxin decisively brought the blueprint to the Wood Spirit clan and wanted to evaluate it. "What will it be when we go up?" the lady from the Wood Spirit clan asked curiously. "So what if you heard? I, Tonghua, have never been afraid of anyone in my life. If he dares to appear in front of me now, I'll King go up." In their opinion, the wine tasting was not important. When the organizer and the contestants provided free wine, they could just freeload. In Chu Zue's opinion, this item was simply a winemaker's artifact. Tonghua was speechless. However, it was obvious that they were stuck at this step and could not get past it no matter what. One person had known about it and had been investigating it for a long time. While brewing wine, Tonggua's strength changed from Ghost Commander, Ghost King, and even Ghost Emperor. The process was full of ups and downs. However, as the research went deeper, the Wood Spirit clan found something strange. Suddenly, a cough exploded in Tonggua's mind. He was startled, and his drunkenness instantly subsided. This person was Mo Xiaoxin. Moreover, Chu Zue knew his weakness. However, after looking at the blueprint that recorded the wine recipe, the Wood Spirit clan valued it at 50,000 soul coins. Growing up in an environment devoid of spirit energy, his understanding of spirit energy could only rely on records and the oral teachings of his elders. He had never learned how to use spirit materials. As a veteran player, Mo Xiaoxin clearly knew that the Wood Spirit clan wouldn't cheat in this aspect, so the price of the blueprint was still very trustworthy. Moreover, he felt that the winemaking recipe was useless in his hands, so he chose to sell his soul coins. The young lady of the Wood Spirit clan nodded hurriedly, a solemn expression on her face. This product was priced at 500 soul coins in the shop. Its function was to speed up the fermentation of the liquor, as well as improve the taste, so that the liquor could be drunk after it was brewed. The method to open the tomb chamber was inextricably linked to the soul-praying wine blueprint in the treasure chest. What will happen? He will go and meet the big cat behind the scenes. Originally, they wanted to recruit 2 Ghost Kings to help them brew the heavenly brew. Ahem, but what I said earlier is true. We really can't drink this wine because it's for soul-type creatures. This can be seen from the combination of spirit materials. Moreover, I went to the chest where this winemaking recipe was stored and found that it was stained with a lot of death energy. If my guess is correct, there should be a huge ancient relic under the area where this blueprint was found, and there are many soul-type creatures inside. While collecting the materials, the Wood Spirit clan didn't feel anything at first, but gradually realized that something was wrong. They also knew that their opponent was the brewer behind the Wood Spirit wine that they had drunk the other day. As for why they didn't try it on their own clansmen, stop sighing, this wine isn't good for us. If I'm not wrong, this wine is for soul-type creatures. We, who have physical bodies, don't have the fortune to enjoy it, Tonghua suddenly said. In fact, Tonghua wasn't the only one who knew about this news. After the fruitless exploration, Mo Xiaoxin marked the coordinates of this area on the map before leaving. Oh my god, the NPCs are going to suppress the players. Here, he could brew whatever wine he wanted to drink by himself. He wouldn't have to worry about the lack of materials and spiritual energy in the real world. However, the existence of this tool shortened the winemaking process to the point where it could be drunk after brewing. However, it would be very strange if it occupied more than 90% of the wine. However, Chu Zue was prepared. At that time, Mo Xiaoxin found out that there was a huge tomb of a powerful overlord of the sea under that area. As for this blueprint, he didn't want to keep it in his hands, so he planned to sell it for money. Seeing that the Wood Spirit clan's wine had long been at the top of the best-selling list in the auction house and made a lot of money, some players couldn't help but start their own winemaking plans. Moreover, the wine brewed here tasted exactly the same as in the real world. There was no difference. Chu Zue had personally experimented with this. Meanwhile, Chu Zue was completely shocked by this game. Misfortune could be a blessing in disguise. At this moment, Chu Zue was even glad that he lost the immortal spring wine. Otherwise, he wouldn't have followed Qi Ming into the world, let alone come to this world. Therefore, this opportunity was very rare for Mo Xiaoxin. Maybe the tomb would be filled with spiritual materials and treasures, and then he could find his mother to redeem him. Beside him, the Wood Spirit Clan lady looked helpless. The spiritual materials needed were soul-severing grass, loathing ginseng, ghost-refined fruit, blood willow branch, ice rue, earth-quenching milk, death corrosion grass, jade bone fruit, devil flame root, devil flame grass, purple spirit body shaping flower, frost blood fruit, and so on. There were a total of 876 spiritual materials. As for the other players who weren't in the industry, they were just waiting to watch. After all, if I can't get first place, I can at least get second place. The second place also has a high reward. In the end, he really found it. In that book, the dragon head pillar was called the tomb guarding beast. However, when brewing the heavenly brew, the Wood Spirit Clan also found many strange things. Not only did they get drunk all day, but they also often got drunk, which made the Wood Spirit Clan feel like a bully had entered the village. There was still a month before the wine tasting conference, so he still had time to improve. As for the reason why he was so diligent, it was also very simple. At this moment, he realized that there was actually spiritual energy in the game, as well as the spiritual materials of heaven and earth that the Chu family had always dreamed of but could never obtain. Every day, he would cheat them of food and drink, and he still stayed here and refused to leave. With anticipation, Mo Xiaoxin thought about divine weapons, high-grade spiritual materials, precious treasures, and the like. He also thought about the possibility of top-notch techniques and super inheritances. However, after opening it, he found that there was only a blueprint inside. So, what will happen if we drink it? The Wood Spirit Clan lady raised her eyebrows and continued to ask. In the end, they did attract people, but it wasn't what they wanted. Before coming, these two people had promised to cooperate, but when they came, they showed up with a different ugly face. However, the same thing was that basically no player was optimistic that the other contestants could defeat the Wood Spirit Clan. As a casual player who fished and carried bricks on the sea all year round, Mo Xiaoxin was recently dragged into the sea by an extremely fierce spiritual fish while fishing, and he was dragged all the way to the bottom of the sea. Therefore, at this moment, many players who mingled in the winemaking industry were ready to make a big profit from the Wood Spirit Clan. In fact, in the beginning, Tonghua and Yanmai did help the Wood Spirit Clan try to brew the heavenly brew, but the result could be said to be very disappointing for the Wood Spirit Clan. Therefore, when the Wood Spirit Clan hosted the wine tasting conference to the public, their peers understood what was going on. After all, it had been 3 years, and the brand of Wood Spirit wine had long been deeply rooted in people's hearts. Since they had just started, they were not qualified to compete at all. However, at this moment, Mo Xiaoxin's intestines were green with regret. However, in the depths of the sea, he found a very wonderful place. It was actually isolated from seawater, forming a territory of its own. To Chuzue, such a world was simply heaven. Among the players, there was never a lack of business-minded people. Hearing this, the Wood Spirit Clan lady showed an expression of as expected. Previously, she had heard that Tonghua joined the players' camp because he was beaten by the players until he knelt and begged for mercy. Now that she thought about it, there was no doubt that it was the truth. At this moment, they all had the same thought. Hearing this, the Wood Spirit Clan lady lowered her tone and said softly, however, in the face of such a rich reward, they were still prepared to participate even though they knew that they were no match for the Wood Spirit Clan. In fact, they were not even at the same level. Although he could distinguish the shortcomings of Wood Spirit wine through tasting it, it did not mean that the wine he brewed was better than that of the Wood Spirit Clan. It only meant that his understanding of wine was at a higher level. For this reason, the excited Mo Xiaoxin began to investigate how to open the tomb chamber. However, as the variety of wine gradually increased and diversified, the Wood Spirit Clan's market was gradually divided. It seemed that it should not be called wine, but more like poison. Ahem. As a result, the wine-tasting conference that the Wood Spirit Clan wanted to hold soon became a hot topic among the players, even though it wasn't announced to the whole region. Tonghua and Yanmai, a fish and a crane, had their arms around each other's shoulders. They each held a bottle of wood spirit wine in their hands, and their faces were red from drinking. They felt wronged and weak, but they could not bear to drive them away. After analyzing it, Emo Xiaoxin was very disappointed when he found out that the blueprint only recorded the recipe for wine. He felt that a huge sum of money had left him. Later on, the players also released their own products. Although they were not as good as wood spirit wine in terms of taste, they were much cheaper. The reason was that when he was reading books in the library for the past few days, he suddenly thought of the encounter that day. So he checked the records about the 2 dragon head pillars at the bottom of the sea. This gave the players who were frugal with their soul coins more choices. However, he knew that he would not be able to sleep tonight. I guessed it. Wait, you'd better pretend that you didn't hear this news. I'm going to sell it to the players. Don't spread it. Tonghua quickly reminded him. In the end, the 2 bullies stayed. Even with many winemaking recipes and winemaking experience, it was not easy to make spiritual wine in one go. From the introduction of the game's geographical environment to the explanation of the game's content, and finally to the identification of spiritual materials, Qi Ming became Chu Zui's game mentor. However, he did not find anything other than the 2 dragon head pillars inserted into the ground in a metal box. Ruins? It's true. Therefore, the participating players were much calmer. During this period, they discovered that many of the essential factors needed to brew heavenly brew could not be achieved by their own clan members. Therefore, they recruited outsiders and invited Tonghua and Yanmai. About 90% of these spiritual materials contained elements related to death and destruction. The recipe on the recipe was called Heavenly Brew, Soul Prayer Wine. The recipe only recorded the brewing process of this heavenly brew, but did not specify the specific effects of the wine. More importantly, there was a brewing tool in the game called the brewing vat. Moreover, there would be no problem even if the wine was successfully brewed. When the time came, they could just find a random player and pay him a sum of soul coins to be a lab rat. After all, it would only take 3 hours for the players to die, so there was nothing to worry about. Fortunately, he had the negative body to turn his body into nothingness, so it was not a big deal. Aren't you afraid that the Lord will hear you? At this moment, looking at the 2 drunken people, the accompanying wood spirit clan members sighed with mixed feelings. However, there was one person who did not think so, and that was Qi Ming. Seeing the bounty increasing day by day, Emo Xiaoxin's heart was filled with a sense of urgency. This time, Qi Ming had specially brought Chu Zui from the deep mountains. Apart from the reward of the first place, he also wanted the Chu clan's wine brewing skills to shine in this world. I'll kneel before him when I get there, Tonghua said weakly. His shoulders were very natural, without any trace of PS. As he was not clear about the price, he naturally would not make a move. As a veteran player, he knew this very well. After all, in the early stages of the game, many players sold high-priced items at a low price and suffered a great loss. Over the past few days, Chu Zui had understood what Qi Ming wanted his help with. Wood Spirit Clan. Indeed, the players are the real sons. We, the Wood Spirit Clan, are picked up from the trash bin. Covering his face and crying, it gradually turned into wailing. Since the decision was made, the Wood Spirit Clan began the brewing of Heavenly Brew. If the destructive elements, such as death and destruction, only occupied less than 1/3 of all the materials, they could assume that these materials were used to mix the spiritual power of different medicinal herbs in the wine. Chu Zui, who understood all this, felt that he was surrounded by happiness. All right, I'll tell the clan leader. Qi Ming also believed that Chu Zui, who had rich wine brewing experience, would definitely improve very quickly. He was also looking forward to him creating a miracle. At this time, in the Wood Spirit Clan's land, out of curiosity, Emo Xiaoxin began to explore inside. Although they could also be resurrected, the person behind the scenes had never promised to resurrect after 3 hours. It depended on the person behind the scenes' mood. How did you know? The lady from the Wood Spirit Clan looked at Tonghua in confusion. Chu Zui did not have absolute confidence in this, but he was willing to give a try. In fact, to the players, this wine tasting conference was purely a competition between them. The Wood Spirit clan's first place was unshakable. In the past few days, in order to let Chu Zue familiarize himself with the game as soon as possible, Qi Ming accompanied him throughout the whole process. Not to mention stable control of spiritual qi, if he could not even stabilize the output of spiritual qi, there was no need to continue the follow-up. If he did not become rich overnight, his mother would swing a knife at him. First, there was the problem of the formula. As for why the tomb owner placed the key above the tomb, Mo Xiaoxin had no way of knowing. Especially Tonghua. Although he claimed to be in the Ghost King realm, he was actually a dabbler. In the process of wine brewing this time, what the Wood Spirit clan needed was the stable and continuous control and output of the Ghost King realm powerhouse. However, Tonghua cultivated the method of fate. Starting from the Dragon Head Pillar, Mo Xiaoxin spent the past few days in the library just to find a way to enter the tomb. There was an old saying in the wine brewing industry, time brings fragrance. Chapter 624. In fact, when the Wood Spirit clan was preparing for the wine tasting competition, Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes, had also noticed the mysterious winemaking recipe. He did not need Mo Xiaoxin to rely on methods, such as searching for information to deduce the use of the blueprint. With the all-powerful Lil Bailey around, he immediately obtained detailed information about the Soul Praying Wine. Soul Praying Wine, Heavenly Brew. Item information. A special type of heaven-brewed wine made with an extremely complicated brewing technique and over 800 types of spirit materials. Soul-type life forms that drink this wine will be pardoned by the 6 paths of reincarnation and will not enter the cycle of reincarnation. Must be drunk regularly. Specific effects. Nourish the soul and strengthen the soul body. Special effect. 6 paths of reincarnation absolution. No reincarnation after death. Soul restriction type seal. Item note. Living beings cannot drink this wine. Otherwise, their souls will be in danger of splitting. Lu Wu could not help but laugh after learning the specific effects of the soul prayer wine. The appearance of this blueprint could be said to solve a big problem in the game. For the players, everything in the campaign was great. However, there was a problem that gave both old and new players a headache, and that was the 3-hour cooldown for resurrection. For those players who liked to court death, this was simply torture. They felt that it was too long. However, Lu Wu had set the cooldown time to protect the souls of the players, so he could not simply remove it. Although he could rely on soul coins to repair the souls of the players and revive them on the spot after they died in the game. However, Lu Wu's stock of soul coins would not be able to afford it if he did that. Especially in the early stages of the game, it was normal for players to die while exploring. Some players could even die several times a day. Not to mention the Naraka server, which was the most difficult server. Death was a common occurrence for players in the Naraka server. If he were to use soul coins to repair the souls of the players, then Lu Wu would not be harvesting leaks, but he would be harvested by the players. If he did that, not only would he not earn any soul coins, but he would also have to spend a lot of money. Not to mention building the 5 servers in the future, because he simply could not afford the huge amount of players dying and reviving every day. Although the development of the players was getting faster and faster, and the soul coins produced were also increasing day by day, it was still not enough for Lu Wu. He was still far from the level where he could resurrect without a cooldown. But now this problem seemed to have been solved. As long as they drank the soul-nourishing soul-praying wine, it wouldn't be a problem for the players to revive on the spot with full HP. From Lu Wu's point of view, the appearance of the soul-praying wine could be considered as filling the gap in the cooldown of resurrection in the game. Although he had introduced similar items in the Battle Achievement Mall, these items were essentially Lu Wu's soul coins to help the players resurrect. Moreover, Lu Wu's resurrection tools were priced at a high price, and there was also the military rank restriction. These obstacles were enough to stop almost all the players. The appearance of the soul-praying wine could be considered to have filled the gap in this aspect, making the game mechanism more complete. However, what made Lu Wu feel regretful was that there was not a single player in the entire Baiki who had the ability to brew the soul prayer wine, including the Wood Spirit clan. This process still had to wait. In Lu Wu's opinion, The price of this type of soul-praying wine would be extremely high when it was first released. Ordinary players would not even be able to dream about it. It was brewed with more than 800 kinds of spiritual materials. This was completely equivalent to resurrecting on the spot with a heavy paywall. Although a bottle of Soul Prayer wine could be used about 10 times, the average price would still be shockingly high. However, Luwu was still looking forward to it. Anyway, the resurrection did not use their own soul coins. The nouveau riche players could do whatever they wanted. At this time in the game, another person had also discovered the use of the Soul Prayer wine. However, at this moment, his mood was completely different from Lu Wu's. After knowing the effect of the Soul Prayer wine, Mo Xiaoxin felt that he had lost the key to the treasure and also the huge sum of money to redeem himself from his mother. What a painful realization. At this moment, Mo Xiaoxin deeply understood what it meant to lose a watermelon and pick up a sesame seed. After reading the information in the library for a while, the agitated Mo Xiaoxin decided to go to the Wood Spirit clan to see if he could redeem the blueprint. To be precise, he wanted to see if he could get a bottle of Soul Prayer wine. After leaving the library, Mo Xiaoxin went straight to the teleportation point outside the city gate. Although the Wood Spirit clan had several wine shops in the Mansion of the Dead, their clan land was not in the Mansion of the Dead, but at the border between the Lioli Coast and the Mansion of the Dead. When he arrived at the teleportation point at the city gate, Mo Xiaoxin walked into the teleportation circle, clicked on the teleportation option, selected the clan land of the Wood Spirit clan, and clicked confirm. The scenery around him became blurry at this moment. After a short period of weightlessness, the surroundings suddenly changed. It was a small village covered by vegetation, and the air was filled with a sweet smell. As far as the eye could see, it was a scene of exuberant vitality. Mo Xiaoxin was already very familiar with this place. He immediately walked along the small path leading to the village and went straight to the wooden house of the Wood Spirit clan leader. After greeting many members of the Wood Spirit clan along the way, Mo Xiaoxin came to the wooden house of the Wood Spirit clan leader and knocked on the door. As he waited, the door of the wooden house was slowly opened and a little head popped out. "Who is it?" "I'm the one who sold you the wine-making blueprint." "Oh, I remember you. Sister is here." As he spoke, the door was opened. The person who opened the door was a little girl in green clothes with a well-behaved posture. At this moment, she was looking at Mo Xiaoxin with a smile, which made him feel a little embarrassed. "Who's here?" At this moment, a woman's voice came from inside the house. "A big deal is here." Hearing this, the little girl immediately turned her head and answered, "Mo Xiaoxin, I'll be right there. Invite him into the house first." The woman's voice came again. Hearing this, the little girl turned her head and looked at Mo Xiaoxin. "Sister said, please come in." Mo Xiaoxin nodded, followed her into the house, and found a place to sit down. As he waited, the door of the clan leader's room opened and a beautiful woman with long, dark green hair like a waterfall walked out. This person was the purpose of Mo Xiaoxin's trip, the current clan leader of the Wood Spirit clan, Mushi. "It's you." When she saw Mo Xiaoxin, Mushi looked very surprised. Then, a charming smile appeared on her face. "Do you have something good to sell this time?" Hearing this, Mo Xiaoxin looked very embarrassed. After thinking for a while, he decided to tell her the purpose of his trip. "It's like this. If it's possible, can you sell me that wine-making blueprint again? Or, can you sell me a bottle of Soul Benediction wine?" Mushi was stunned when she heard this. She could not help but ask, "What do you want the Soul Benediction wine for? Do you know what the effect of the Soul Benediction wine is?" After learning from Tonghua that the Soul Benediction wine was for soul-type beings, Mushi was very curious about Mo Xiaoxin's purpose of wanting the Soul Benediction wine. "I have my own use for it," Mo Xiaoxin said impatiently. Hearing this, Mushi squinted her eyes and smiled. She did not continue to ask. Instead, she looked at Mo Xiaoxin and said, "Do you know how much a bottle of Soul Benediction wine costs?" Mo Xiaoxin shook his head in shock. He really did not know. "To tell you the truth, after buying the Soul Benediction wine blueprint from you, we spent a total of 750,000 soul coins to buy the materials for brewing the Soul Benediction wine." However, this batch of materials was only enough for 2 brews, and we failed both times. I've calculated this. Even if we can brew the Soul Benediction wine with a 100% success rate in the future, excluding other losses and labor costs, a bottle of wine will cost about 25,000 soul coins per batch. If we really want to sell it to the public, what price do you think is appropriate? Mushi smiled at Mo Xiaoxin and said. Hearing this, Mo Xiaoxin's expression became even more awkward. Obviously, if they were to sell it to the public, even if the brewing failed, it would definitely be included in the cost price. Coupled with labor and other costs, Mo Xiaoxin felt that the wine would probably be sold at a sky-high price. At this moment, Mo Xiaoxin was trembling. He felt that the 50,000 soul coins he earned from selling the blueprint might only be enough to buy a bottle of Soul Benediction wine. However, thinking of the treasure, Mo Xiaoxin gritted his teeth and said, "I'll buy a bottle when you're done brewing it." "I'm sorry, but we've already stopped brewing the Soul Benediction wine. The reason is very simple. We're not capable enough to brew such a high-quality wine." Mushi could not help but sigh as she said this, a touch of sadness on her face. In fact, if it was only a technical problem, she would definitely find a way to overcome it. However, the biggest problem was that if this wine was brewed, there would be no market at all. According to Tonghua, the Soul Benediction wine could not be drunk by living beings with physical bodies. It was only suitable for soul-type beings. Although Tonghua was very unreliable, Mushi still listened to what he said. Therefore, without a market, there was no need for the wine to exist. Mushi decisively chose to stop brewing the Soul Benediction wine and stop investing in research and development. Thinking of the 750,000 soul coins spent on materials and 50,000 soul coins wasted just like that, Mushi felt bitter, but she did not say it. After all, she was already the clan leader. However, Mo Xiaoxin felt like he was struck by lightning when he heard this. He had spent a few days looking up information and making preparations. He was even ready to move the treasure, but now he was told that the key was gone. "You're not going to persist?" Mo Xiaoxin could not help but ask. "No, I'll give up. Maybe you can try to persist for a while. Are you going to pay in soul coins?" Mushi looked at Mo Xiaoxin expectantly. Hearing this, Mo Xiaoxin's face darkened. He was a poor, low-level player. If he were to pay in soul coins for research and development, he would have to sell himself to get so many soul coins. "What about the brewing blueprint of the Soul Benediction wine?" "I threw it into the clan warehouse and sealed it." Mushi answered immediately. "Sell it to me." Hearing this, Mushi looked very surprised. "You don't know how to brew wine. What's the point of buying the brewing blueprint?" "I don't know how to brew wine, but I can learn." Mo Xiaoxin glared. Mushi was speechless. After a final discussion, Mushi agreed to redeem the brewing blueprint of the Soul Benediction wine for Mo Xiaoxin. Mo Xiaoxin felt the pinch when he sent the 50,000 soul coins back to the Wood Spirit clan. After playing for 3 years, this was the first time he had such a huge sum of 50,000 soul coins. However, it was gone before he could even warm up to it. It was unbearable. However, Mo Xiaoxin naturally had a use for the blueprint of the Soul Benediction wine. He did not really want to learn the brewing technique, but he wanted to find players with potential to help him brew the Soul Benediction wine. In the following days, Mo Xiaoxin began to collect information on players who had the ability to brew wine from the forum and other places. He began to prepare for his redemption plan. Chapter 6:25. After redeeming the blueprint of the Soul Prayer wine from the Wood Spirit clan, Mo Xiaoxin began his brewing plan. First, he looked for players with potential. For this reason, he wandered through various sections of the forum and collected a lot of information on players with potential. Among these players, one of them caught Mo Xiaoxin's attention. This person's name was Chu Zue. He was an unknown player, or at least Mo Xiaoxin had never heard of him. This time, he coincidentally obtained his information because in the wine culture section of the forum, a player had posted that the player's brewing skills had improved rapidly and that high-quality wine had already appeared. At that time, Mo Xiaoxin paid attention to this post. After that, many good wine players commented on this post, saying that the new wine, Immortal Spring, tasted really good. So Mo Xiaoxin began to investigate the Immortal Spring wine and the winemaker behind it. By summarizing the comments of the players on the forum and the vague descriptions of the players who had met the winemaker, Mo Xiaoxin focused his search and really found the winemaker behind the Immortal Spring wine, which was Chu Zhe. Mo Xiaoxin was pleasantly surprised by the subsequent understanding, because Chu Zue was very talented in brewing. According to the players on the wine culture section, the quality of his wine was improving every day. It was as if the taste was changing every day, and there was improvement every time. In Mo Xiaoxin's opinion, Chu Zue's performance was exactly the kind of talented player he wanted. So, Mo Xiaoxin prepared to pay him a visit. Today was the 7th day of Chu Zue's campaign. During this period, Chu Zue had gone through a wonderful journey from the initial disdain and resistance to the current fragrance. At that time, he thought that it was childish for a 90-year-old to still play games. Now, he thought that why couldn't a 90-year-old player play games? Who the hell made that rule? It could be said that after experiencing it, the campaign had completely captured his heart. At the same time, Qi Ming sponsored him with 10,000 soul coins. This huge sum of money became Chu Zue's first startup capital. He spent it all on purchasing winemaking tools in the shop and spiritual materials in the auction house. After that, he began to brew wine without rest, constantly deepening his understanding of spiritual materials. With a solid foundation in brewing, Chu Zue's progress could be described as lightning speed. What made Chu Zue's eyes brim with tears was that the Immortal Spring wine that he had yearned for decades in reality had finally been brewed. Moreover, compared to reality, there was no need for 3 years of hard work. All it took was one night's work. Not only was the process simple, but even the materials needed to refine it were extremely cheap in the auction house. This made Chu Zue feel very good. But this time, he didn't fall into a coma for a few days. With the help of the recovery potion from Amal, he quickly recovered and once again threw himself into his brewing business. At the same time, the Immortal Spring wine that was brewed in large quantities was also put up for auction at a low price. After all, Qi Ming had only provided him with 10,000 soul coins. He would still have to pay for the spiritual materials in the future, so Chu Zue had no choice but to sell this batch of wine. What he didn't expect was that this batch of wine received a good reputation. The auction house was full of praises, and many players even left messages asking to meet him. Chu Zue didn't refuse. That was because he wanted feedback from the players, which would help him improve in the future. After getting a lot of feedback, Chu Zue started the brewing of the spiritual wine. During this period, he didn't rest for 24 hours, but he didn't feel tired. Instead, he was always in a state of high spirits. In reality, he had the support of the nutrient solution, and in the game, he had the support of the stamina potion from them all. 24 hours of continuous work wasn't a problem for Chu Zue at all. At this moment, Chu Zue was in a cliff cave in the northern corner of the Lioli coast. He was in the midst of brewing his 12th spiritual wine. He had succeeded in the first 11 times, but he wasn't satisfied with the taste of the wine that he brewed. However, the improvement each time was extremely obvious. Chu Zue enjoyed this feeling very much. In reality, wine was something that would become more fragrant with time. But for a wine addict like Chu Zue, how could he wait? To be able to brew the finished product so quickly and then improve it was impossible to do in reality. That was because this was something that could only be achieved by a winemaker's lifetime of hard work, or even a few generations of hard work. After all, the brewing cycle was too long. But in this game, it became extremely simple. Everything in the game was perfect to Chu Zue. At this moment, Chu Zue looked at the wine that was fermenting in the wine tank. His heart was filled with anticipation, waiting for the moment when the wine would be brewed. At this moment, a voice came from outside the cliff cave. "Is anyone there?" Chu Zue was stunned when he heard that. He immediately turned the corner and looked out, only to find a player standing outside the cliff cave. "You're looking for me?" Chu Zue couldn't help but ask. "You're Chu Zue?" "That's me." Chu Zue immediately walked out when he heard that the person was looking for him. "Hello, I saw about your deeds on the forum and came to visit you," Mo Xiaoxin, who had just arrived, said with a smile. "Oh, you're here to give me a suggestion, right?" Chu Zue came to a realization. "No, I'm here to cooperate with you in a business deal." Mo Xiaoxin didn't beat around the bush and immediately stated his intention. Chu Zue was stunned when he heard that. He couldn't help but ask curiously, "What kind of cooperation?" "I have a very good wine brewing recipe here. If it can be brewed, it'll definitely be a big seller. However, the brewing process is extremely complicated, so I want to ask if you're interested." Chu Zue was inexplicably tempted when he heard that it would be very profitable. Although there were all kinds of spiritual materials here that could allow him to display his brewing skills to his heart's content, the problem was that he didn't have soul coins. After officially starting, Chu Zue realized that even if he was given 10 times more than the 10,000 soul coins that Qi Ming had given him, it wouldn't be enough with his current spending method. That was also the reason why he put the recently brewed wine up for sale in the auction house. How could he not be tempted when he heard that Mo Xiaoxin had a recipe that could make him a lot of money? However, Chu Zue had a lot of doubts in his mind. He didn't understand why this person didn't look for other brewing players, but instead came to him, a player who was classified as a newbie. However, Mo Xiaoxin's next words dispelled his doubts. "First of all, I have to admit that the brewing recipe I provided is extremely difficult. At this stage, no player can brew it successfully. In fact, I don't think you can brew it successfully, but you have a lot of potential. According to the players on the forum, the wine you brew is improving every day. That's why I found you." Hearing this, Chu Zue nodded and looked at Mo Xiaoxin. He looked at Mo Xiaoxin and said, "Can you show me the recipe first, so that I can have an idea of what it is? Then I'll tell you if you agree or not." "Sure." Mo Xiaoxin didn't hesitate. He took out the recipe for Soul Prayer wine from his channel and handed it to Chu Zue. Chu Zue began to examine the recipe with curiosity. However, as he looked, he was dumbfounded. The spiritual materials recorded on it dazzled him. He randomly opened the shop and found that every spiritual material required a high price of soul coins. Chu Zue was dumbfounded by such a high-level recipe. "How is it?" Mo Xiaoxin asked expectantly. "It's too difficult. I don't think I can handle it," Chu Zue said awkwardly. "Don't you want to try? You'll pay?" Chu Zue asked in return. This time, Mo Xiaoxin was also embarrassed. Damn it, at the end of the day, it was still poverty that limited everything. "Aren't you brewers very rich? Aren't you willing to take out a part of it to gamble? Maybe you'll make a fortune," Mo Xiaoxin asked reluctantly. "That's for others. I've just started out and don't have a fixed customer base. I only sell the cheapest wine. There's not much profit, so I don't have any money." Chu Zue answered truthfully. "Actually, I want to try," Chu Zue added in the end. In fact, seeing such a difficult recipe, Chu Zue's heart palpitated. He really wanted to try, but in the end, he didn't have the money. He couldn't afford such a high consumption of spiritual materials at all. "How many soul coins do you have now?" Mo Xiaoxin asked. 2,300. Mo Xiaoxin opened his backpack and looked at the 4-digit soul coins he had in storage. He suddenly felt that his plan to get rich quickly had hit a bottleneck. He had no money. He couldn't do anything without money. With just the soul coins they had, they wouldn't be able to buy many spiritual materials, not to mention the possibility of failure during the attempt. Moreover, if he wanted to try, he had to prepare 2 portions to prevent accidents. At this moment, Mo Xiaoxin fell into deep thought. The wood spirit bought 2 batches of spiritual materials to brew the soul blessing wine with 750,000 soul coins. Then 1 batch would cost 375,000. If I fish for 100 soul coins a day, I can only try it once every 10 years, and then brew the soul blessing wine in my lifetime. Thinking of this, Mo Xiaoxin felt a headache. He felt that his plan to get rich quickly and redeem himself was ruined. Where was he going to get the money? Looking at the absent-minded Mo Xiaoxin, Chu Zue said, "What should I do?" Mo Xiaoxin rolled his eyes. Do you know any players who are especially rich? Let them invest in the company." Hearing this, Chu Zue was stunned. That's not a good idea. Those who make a lot of money don't give in to trifles. You're not harming him. You're pulling him to get rich together. What if I fail? What if? Confidence, you know? You can do it. After this conversation, Chu Zue felt that he had been fooled. But for some reason, even though he knew it was a bluff, he still wanted to try. With such a high-level recipe, the wine brewed might really sell for a lot of money. When he had the money, he could brew whatever he wanted and drink whatever he wanted. Thinking of this, Chu Zue's desire to brew the soul-blessing wine deepened. Most importantly, as a wine lover, he also wanted to taste the heaven-brewed spiritual wine. That was the biggest temptation for him. Therefore, the two hit it off and prepared to pull a group of people to invest and continue their plan to get rich quickly. The first person Chu Zue found was naturally seventh. Mo Xiaoxin didn't have any friends in the game. Originally, he wanted to pull his mother to invest, but the answer he got was, "Get lost. Do you still need to spend money to get rich? I'll have everything if I sell you. Go and play by yourself." A mother's love was like a mountain, pressing down on Mo Xiaoxin and suffocating him again. Chapter 626. That person had reached a peak that he had never imagined. If the Sea King was here, he would definitely recognize this person. Why do we have to make offerings? Can we unite all the merchant guilds to rebel against the underworld trade union's rule? The reason why he had left the blueprint of the soul-blessing wine, which could open the tomb below, here was so that the Sea King would come here under his arrangements and obtain the blueprint of the soul-blessing wine. Then, the Sea King would unintentionally discover the secret hidden in the blueprint and receive the inheritance of the shadow. They were willing to form an alliance with the shadow because they felt that the underworld trade union was too ruthless in exploiting them. It could be said that Eldering had witnessed the rise of a king. The goal was to allow the Sea King to grow because he wanted to nurture a challenger and subversive like the shadow. He was lucky enough to survive. He was someone who came from the chaotic shadows era. He had lived for so long that he could not even remember. The chaotic shadows ocean era was called the chaotic shadows because of the shadow. This was also what the shadow told him with a smile when he questioned why he was doing this. Before leaving, he walked to the back of the dragon head pillar. That person once controlled a huge force that spanned across many oceans, but he did not choose to lead his subordinates to the underworld central ocean. Instead, he chose to fight the most unfair battle. Gradually, violent undercurrent whirlpools appeared all around. Later, the Sea King learned that the Underworld Trade Union wanted to investigate the player clan. After scanning for a while, Eldering fell into silence. During this period, he climbed up step by step until he became one of the two elders in the Devouring Ocean, second only to the Guildmaster. He also controlled the distribution rights of the War Chamber of Commerce. At that time, the Underworld Trade Union decided to investigate the Sea King secretly. However, after returning, he informed the higher-ups of the Underworld Trade Union that there was nothing wrong with the Sea King, and these trash and traders were the sea merchant allies who left. After that, Mo Xiaoxin decisively rejected the many investors that came after because there were too many of them. At least in Elder Ying's opinion, the player clan might be one of them. Eldering was very disappointed about this, but he never gave up. If he could not create any value, the major guilds would not do anything to him. After all, he had stated in advance that this investment might not be successful. For this reason, the Shadow had already started planning when he first established the sea territory. But with Elder Ying's words, coupled with his position, everyone had agreed to his decision at that time. After the incident of plundering the sea, he acknowledged the Sea King and felt that he might be able to reach the same level as the Shadow. Although this was a heaven-grade wine, he didn't know its specific effects. He only knew that it had something to do with opening the tomb at the bottom of the sea. This was also the main reason why he needed the soul prayer wine. Actually, Eldering had not understood the meaning of those words at that time, but he understood it later on. In reality, the guild leaders of the various large guilds considered brewing the sky wine to be an excellent investment, and the Shadow had indeed done so. In fact, How could he not notice the Sea King's many secret tricks? After all, other than on the forum, he had never criticized anyone in the game, so there was no way he would make a mistake. This was because if the Sea King failed, he could still find another successor and continue his plan to overthrow the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. The feeling of sweeping through the auction house made the two of them extremely excited. After reminiscing for a while, Elder Ing stood up and put on his mask once again and donned the black robe. At that moment, Elder Ing could still clearly remember the skinny figure who asked him a question when he was explaining the knowledge of the sea trade and talked about the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. Every year, he would come here once to pay homage to those who had passed away. In the garden, the first to be plucked is always the most gorgeous and beautiful flower. Although your idea is not wrong, just like the gorgeous flower, it will become the first target of the pluckers. This is not desirable. Although strength was important, what he wanted more were those who were not satisfied with the status quo and who dared to overthrow the old order. Without stirring up any waves, the figure quickly dived into the depths of the sea. As a result, the poor duo who had reached an agreement instantly became rich. However, the reality was that the Underworld Chamber of Commerce had never encountered any storms since it had been established, let alone a possible threat. The player clan was even less of a threat. We are very simple. We don't have the dreams of the Shadow King, and we don't have his insistence to control his own destiny. Everything is just for profit. If there is enough profit, who would be willing to shed blood and sacrifice in exchange for illusory things? The doubts raised by the Sea King were very similar to the shadows in Elder Ying's eyes. Moreover, he seemed to be more ambitious than the Shadow, and it was not a false dream. The first to join was Chi Ming. The foreign creatures that entered this space and the tracks of their activities in this space were now clearly visible. In the end, he did not expect to receive an email with 100,000 soul coins on the same day. The shadow on the surface of the man's body also dissipated at this time, revealing his true body. However, when the Underworld Chamber of Commerce was willing to give in and give conditions that these sea merchants could accept, the so-called unbreakable became a plate of loose sand. Money could give people a feeling of omnipotence. At that time, Elder Ing smiled and replied. However, he had always remembered the history that belonged to the Shadow Clan, and also paid homage to the Shadow King that he had once followed. That was the Shadow King's final unwillingness. In the email, Ao Jian asked about the purpose of the money. Time flew, but his idea of overthrowing the Underworld Chamber of Commerce had never changed. This challenge, who would believe that it was the Shadow King's idea since he was young? At this time, Elder Ying's gaze swept around. After a moment of silence, he walked towards the two dragon head pillars in the center of this area. However, in Elder Ying's opinion, the Shadow King was the most promising person to overturn the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. As he continued to dive, he came to an inconspicuous pile of seaweed. At this time, the president of the Myth Guild, Gu Yu, contacted Mo Xiaoxin and expressed his interest. He was willing to invest and provide 300,000 soul coins as an aid. He wore a black cloak that covered his entire body, and there was a ghost mask on his face. On his back, there was the torrent imprint that symbolized the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. However, there would always be a certain impact. When the number of people increased, there might be problems when the forum was publicized. For the sake of his life, Mo Xiaoxin had always been cautious in this aspect and would not be as unscrupulous as he was in the forum. In history, there were many forces that challenged the Underworld Chamber of Commerce's ruling power, but there was no one like the Shadow who made the Underworld Chamber of Commerce pay such a huge price. Otherwise, the Sea King's messenger stationed in the Underworld branch of the Devouring Sea would not have the right and qualification to understand the contents of the high-level meetings. Therefore, it was always the heroes who created the era, and not the era that created the heroes. Although the Sea King had hidden the loot very well and had buried the looted resources deep underground, Lu Li still managed to detect it. The definition of a true powerhouse does not lie in how strong one is, but in the ability to not be limited by anything and to decide one's own fate. These guild presidents were not stupid. They did not know if they could earn back the money, but they were clear about one thing. Teacher, if I were the flower picker, I would pick the ugliest flower first, not the most beautiful one. From the initial ordinary sea merchant force to the multifaceted development force that monopolized the entire sea, and finally to the shadow dynasty that spanned across many seas. Qiming was very pleased with Chu Zue's idea of brewing the heaven wine, and he immediately took out 40,000 soul coins to sponsor him. Woo-woo, at this moment, the dragon head pillar trembled and let out a sorrowful cry. While Mo Xiaoxin was happy about this, he was also a little worried. As time passed, war chambers of commerce continued to fall, and new war chambers of commerce rose. Elder Ing had always been observing silently, choosing the successor of the Shadow King that he wanted. Standing in front of the dragon head pillar, Elder Ing took off the mask on his face, revealing a horrifying skeleton face. There was not a trace of flesh on his face, and the skull was burning with the ghost fire. In the growth of this challenger, he would definitely need the existence of a companion. While Mo Xiaoxin was happy about this, he also replied to Ao Jian about his plan to brew the wine. After that, Ao Jian did not respond. When the shadow collapsed from exhaustion, he turned his head to look at Elder Ing and said one sentence. At this moment, he stopped diving and walked toward the haystack. Moreover, Mo Xiaoxin was not sure if he could brew the wine successfully. Even if he succeeded, Mo Xiaoxin was not sure if he could sell it well. All these arrangements were just to let the Sea King obtain the inheritance more smoothly. Just like that, the Shadow Dynasty walked a strange path and also ushered in the final battle before its destruction. His eyes subconsciously glanced at the treasure chest that he had previously stored here, and his body trembled. Compared to Mo Xiaoxin, Chu Zue was very happy, and he also laughed and patted the dog's head on the forum for 3 years, and the reason for doing so was very simple. Since the player clan dared to collude with the Sea King and rob the merchant ship of the Underworld Chamber of Commerce, it at least proved that the player clan had the same ambition. At that moment, Elder Ing thought that he was going to die, especially Sun Qi, who had been criticized by him countless times on the forum. This hatred had been formed for 3 years. No matter what, the shadow was still the brightest flower in the garden of the Sea Region era. Although he could not escape the fate of being broken, at least history still remembered him. But at that moment, the shadow stood in front of him and protected him with the last of his life. That was a story about a challenger. As he dived, the water pressure continued to increase, but his speed did not decrease. Until that day, when he met the Sea King. At this moment, Elder Ying's heart was in turmoil. His body could not help but tremble, and the soul fire in his head was jumping violently, which showed how emotional he was at the moment. Everything was arranged by him in secret. As for Mo Xiaoxin, because he did not have many friends in the game and his only mother refused to help, he sent a message to his father to test the waters. Just like the era of the Heaven-Defying Alliance, even if they were called Heaven-Defying Rebels by the Heavenly Realm. But the era they lived in was called the era of the Heaven-Defying Alliance by the Heavenly Realm. Those who resisted in that era were branded with the glory of the Heaven-Defying Alliance. It was precisely because of the dazzling brilliance of this group of people that the later generations would remember this unique era. At this moment, Elder Ing still remembered what the last sea merchant ally said before he left. In fact, he had paid attention to many people, but most of them died in the law of the jungle or went to the Central Sea region. Until now, no one dared to challenge the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. In just 2 days, the 4-digit soul coins in their hands had increased to 7-digit soul coins. And now, they had received close to 3 million soul coins, which was more than enough at this stage. But the surprise came very soon. But there was no miracle in the end. Under the all-out attack of the Underworld Chamber of Commerce, he was defeated. He distributed all 10 sea gods' pardons to the most ambitious people. As sea merchants, it was inevitable to have contact with the Underworld Chamber of Commerce, and they had to pay 60% of the trade profits every year. This was because after the sea plunder, The higher-ups of the Underworld Chamber of Commerce expressed doubts about the Sea King and did not believe what the Sea King said. The money came too fast, so fast that they were stunned and caught off guard. At this moment, he slowly knelt in front of the dragon head pillar, lowered his head, and mumbled some vague words. Drops of tears formed by the condensation of soul fire rolled down his face. Lu Chai and the other leaders of the major guilds had heard the news that he was going to brew the heaven wine, and they all came to him, expressing their willingness to invest. The reason he gave was that he wanted to know the background of the player clan before making his move. Until now, no one knew his secret. He was still the Elder Ing who did his best for the development of the Underworld Chamber of Commerce, and no one had ever doubted him. Elder Ing had once said to the Sea King, when it was time to decide who would go, Elder Ing accepted the job and quietly went to the Shima Island where the Sea King's faction was located. However, this figure could easily pass through without any hindrance, because once the biggest financial problem was solved, he could do whatever he wanted. These were the last words the Shadow left in the world before his life faded away. This was also the reason why Elder Ing chose to help the player clan. The reason why he lost was not because of the Underworld Chamber of Commerce, but because of his allies. In that battle, Elder Ing was also a member of the Shadow Army. He was also prepared to die, and followed the Shadow to welcome the final moments that belonged to them. He wanted to overthrow the Underworld Chamber of Commerce, and he wanted to control his own fate. As for the reason, it was only because of the 3 words why. Even if the wheel of history rolled, it could not erase the glory of their existence. He waved his hand, and the world in front of him instantly turned grayish-white. In this grayish-white world, there was a light green trail of life. Listening to the sorrowful wail of the dragon head pillar, Elder Ing slowly raised his head and reached out to touch the pillar that was engraved with runes. His bony finger traced the lines on the pillar, and he reread the ancient story recorded on the dragon head pillar. At this moment, Elder Ing thought that this question might be the beginning of the Shadow's path of no return. And the biggest injustice was the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. Without flesh and blood, he lived on the soul, praying wine alone until now. It was Elder Ing of the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. In an instant, the surrounding environment changed dramatically. The originally pitch-black vision became bright, and the seawater that enveloped him was blocked behind him. First, he established the elite Shadow Army, and then formed alliances with many powerful sea merchants, slowly strengthening his trump card. The blueprint of the soul, praying wine, was something he had left for the Sea King. After that, the two of them followed the list on the blueprint and began to purchase spiritual materials from the auction. They bought and bought, because the treasure chest had disappeared. But Elder Ing secretly suppressed the matter, and helped the Sea King obtain the qualification to enter the War Chamber of Commerce. But what Mo Xiaoxin did not expect was yet to come. The young Shadow heard his answer and did not speak again, but just nodded silently. Whether it was cultivation or intelligence, the Shadow far surpassed his peers, and he would continue to hide in the dark, quietly watching and looking forward. Some people built powerful dynasties to obtain status, benefits, and other things. The feeling of his flesh and blood melting was very painful, and the pain pierced through his heart. Since then, this child displayed extremely high talent, and he became even more attentive. But some people built dynasties to subvert the old order. Those words touched Elder Ing greatly, and he said, his name was Shadow, and he was born in a sea merchant family. Later generations had labeled Shadow with many labels, saying that he overestimated himself and was extremely stupid. But as his teacher, Elder Ing knew that he was a person with a real dream. He had long forgotten how long it had been, but it had been a very long time. If he were to be exposed, it would be the end of him. After that, Elder Ing finally started to take action. Among the players who wanted to kill him the most, Gu Yu and Sun Chi were the ones who ranked higher. The first reason was that the Smoke Dragon fleet belonged to the Acheron Merchant Guild, and the Sea King dared to harm them secretly. This action had violated the Acheron Merchant Guild's rule of protecting its subordinates, and he could be punished at that time. That was the first time Elder Ing paid attention to this child called Shadow, and also the first time he entered the clan school. At this time, at the border between the Void Ocean and the Kuelong Ocean, there was once a challenger in this ocean, and he was one of the few who dared to go against the Acheron Merchant Guild. In that battle, the Acheron Merchant Guild sent many god-level experts to set up the Annihilation Formation, and the entire Shadow dynasty collapsed. At that time, Eldering thought that Shadow would be like those pioneers, and eventually lead his forces to join the Acheron Merchant Guild in the name of sea merchants. Then, he would settle in the central ocean of the Acheron Merchant Guild and compete with the real powerhouses for the Acheron Merchant Guild. However, Shadow made a decision that seemed very stupid to him. Although they were not clear about the specific effects of the Soul Blessing wine, they reckoned that it was a wine that could bring about a very powerful boost, and it was a project that was very worth investing in. This could be seen from the success of the Wood Spirit clan. A figure galloped from afar, and his ghost-like figure blended into the night, and then suddenly shot into the water. He did not need trash and traders on his way to overthrow the Acheron Merchant Guild. What he desired was someone like him, someone who wanted to shine. After some hesitation, Emo Xiaoxin clenched his teeth and chose to agree. He hated the Acheron Merchant Guild, so he joined the Acheron Merchant Guild and planned for a brilliant appearance like the Chaotic Shadows era. When the horn to overthrow the Acheron Merchant Guild was blown, that era of the ocean became known as the Chaotic Shadows era. If it really succeeded, it would be equivalent to holding onto a cash cow in the future. The one buried deep in the ground at the moment was the latter. And it was also for this reason that Shadow firmly united the many sea merchants. A long sea war thus began, and a man called Shadow was remembered by the higher-ups of the Acheron Merchant Guild until now. He believed that with his disguise, he would never be discovered. In that time, when the merchant ship transporting the Ice Firestone was robbed by the player clan, it was also because of this that he proposed to send people to investigate first, instead of directly suppressing the player clan. Originally, even with the help of Ao, Jian, and Qi Ming, the money was still not enough for the brewing of the Soul Blessing wine. After Emo, Xiaoxin, and Chu Zue reached an agreement, they started the brewing of the Soul Blessing wine, and at the same time, to prepare the startup funds, they began to recruit people to join them. But he had never thought of appearing in person. Chapter 6:27. All of this was planned by Elder Ing to overthrow the Underworld Chamber of Commerce. However, just as he was about to give the inheritance to the Sea King, something went wrong. This was something Elder Ing did not expect. The blueprint of the Soul Benediction wine was gone. The reason why he left the blueprint of the Soul Benediction wine here instead of the finished product was because he was afraid that the Sea King would notice the age of the wine and suspect something. However, by leaving the treasure chest, he could make the Sea King think that the blueprint of the Soul Benediction wine had always been here and no one had ever found it. The purpose was to hide himself. Later on, he would let the Sea King obtain the secret of the Soul Benediction wine's blueprint by chance and meet the mysterious person who knew how to brew wine. However, the first step of the process went wrong. Elder Ing fell into deep thought. He knew that he had to change his plan. Beiki, Lioli Coast. At this moment, Emo, Xiaoxin, and Chu Zhe stared at the wine vat with a serious expression, looking forward to the moment the finished product appeared. Time flew, and half a day passed by quickly. Chu Zue, who had been in a state of concentration, suddenly reached out and grabbed the lid of the wine vat. He took a deep breath and lifted it slowly. A putrid stench of decay hit them in the face. Retch! Emo Xiaoxin and Chu Zue could not help but retch. At this moment, the viscous black liquid was rolling in the wine vat, emitting waves of horrible stench. This failed. Emo Xiaoxin pinched his nose and asked Chu Zue. Yes, Chu Zue nodded helplessly. This was the second time they had tried it. It was a nightmare for Chu Zue when he mixed and brewed the spirit materials of death and destruction. Both failures made him want to vomit just by smelling it, let alone drinking it. Others would not even want such a thing, let alone selling it for money. Looking at the rolling black liquid, Emo Xiaoxin felt his heart ache. It was as if the scene of soul coins burning in flames appeared in front of him. 2 failures and more than 700,000 soul coins were gone. Mo Xiaoxin finally understood why the Richwood Spirit Clan gave up so decisively. This was a complete waste of money, and the kind that would not receive a single cent after failure. But since it had already started and the soul coins were burning, how could Mo Xiaoxin be satisfied if he did not succeed? He immediately looked at Chu Zue and said, "Go on. I believe you will succeed. Actually, I want to ask if those guilds will hunt us down if we fail." Chu Zue asked guiltily. Mo Xiaoxin was speechless. "Is this something a winemaker like you should say? You have to believe in yourself." "Actually, my main profession is an alcoholic. Making wine is just a side job," Chu Zue whispered. At this moment, Mo Xiaoxin's mind was in a mess. He could even smell the impending doom. Chu Spirit Chu, but Chu Mo. Understood. Chu. After the second failure, Mo Xiaoxin and Chu Zhe did not immediately start the third round of brewing. Instead, they began to summarize the mistakes that might have occurred during the brewing process and improve accordingly. Mu Chu Ling Spirit God. Chu Mu did not choose Chu. As Master Mo, she did Mu did not. As the clan leader, Mu Shi did not choose to hide it. She generously told Chu Zue about the experience that she had bought with 750,000 soul coins. Mu Shi told Chu Zue that it was best to have 2 Ghost Kings to help with the brewing of soul prayer wine. Their continuous and stable output of spiritual energy can ensure a better fusion of 800 spiritual materials. Mu Shi reminded Mo Xiaoxin not to look for Tonghua. That's the biggest lesson from the Wood Spirit Clan's brewing of soul prayer wine. Mo Xiaoxin accepted the advice humbly. Mo Xiaoxin was worried about where to find a Ghost King to help with the brewing. So, Mo Xiaoxin looked for Rock Ghost King. Rock Ghost King refused Mo Xiaoxin's invitation. He said he was busy and had to teach students. He had no time. Mo Xiaoxin decided to look for Xiao Tian and Empress Haiyu, who had recently been promoted to Ghost King. But they are nowhere to be found, and they have no way of contacting them. Mo Xiaoxin was stumped. So, he went to the library again and started searching for information, looking for a solution. After a busy day, he found a way to continuously provide high-intensity and high-purity spiritual energy without the help of a Ghost King. The method was simple. He used a large number of Yin Spirit stones to build a formation that could continuously provide spiritual energy. Mo Xiaoxin was no stranger to Yin Spirit stones. This item might be useless to players like themselves, but it was a universal currency in the outside world. When the Sea King beat up Cha Na, the protection fee he collected from him was Yin Spirit stones, a kind of spiritual energy crystallization formed by the spiritual energy of the underworld. The function of the spiritual energy formation was to extract the spiritual energy from the Yin Spirit stones. P.S. It's not that soul coins can't be used, but Lu didn't allow the players to convert soul coins into soul power. Mo Xiaoxin was delighted that the Yin Spirit stones were sold at the auction house. Many players would sell them at a low price at the auction house after mining or picking them up from other places for players who needed to buy them. After understanding the method, Mo Xiaoxin bought a large number of Yin Spirit stones without hesitation. At the same time, he stepped into the library again and started to study how to build a formation. The construction of a spirit array was definitely an extremely profound knowledge. The difficulty lay in the degree of precision in the layout of the spirit array. It was necessary to carve the corresponding lines in the corresponding positions, place the corresponding talismans of the corresponding attributes, and also build a spirit array as a transit station for the operation of the spirit array. Although it wasn't difficult to get started, it was extremely difficult to master it. However, Mo Xiaoxin didn't give up. He started to flip through the books in the library to learn about it. Fortunately, the formation of the spiritual energy conversion was not an advanced formation, so it wasn't difficult. After 5 days of study, Mo Xiaoxin started to try building the formation. In the beginning, it always ended in failure. However, he gradually figured out some things, and the connection between the spiritual energy nodes also began to become coherent. In fact, Mo Xiaoxin was very talented in terms of understanding. In just 5 days, he achieved what others would take months to figure out. Finally, on the 10th day, Mo Xiaoxin succeeded. He learned how to build the beginner-level spiritual energy conversion formation. His and Chu Zui's subsequent brewing plan for the Soul Prayer wine was restarted. Mo Xiaoxin and Chu Zui were full of anticipation for the brewing this time. After setting up the formation, the wine vat placed in the center of the formation was continuously filled with Yin's spiritual energy converted from Yin's spirit stones, which accelerated the fusion of the spiritual materials inside. Mo Xiaoxin and Chu Zui were full of anticipation for the brewing this time. However, the result was still a failure. However, the failed product this time didn't have a stench. This was an obvious improvement. After 3 failures, 1/3 of the 3 million soul coins had been spent. The 2 of them felt the pressure. However, they persisted. Try, fail, try, fail. After failing 7 times, they finally succeeded on the 8th brew. This time, a delicate fragrance wafted over when the lid was opened. The wine inside was no longer sticky and murky. Instead, it was clear and transparent. A black mist could be faintly seen spreading and contracting in the wine. Soul Prayer wine, heavenly brew. Item details. A special type of heavenly brew quality wine brewed with an extremely complicated brewing process and over 800 spiritual materials. Item effect. After drinking, one will gain the ability to revive without cool down. The specific number of times is calculated based on the quality of the wine. Wine quality. 21. Low. Number of revivals. 3 times. For every 8 points in quality, 1 chance to revive without cool down. After drinking, this ability will be stored and activated after death. Duration. 38 days. At this moment, Mo Xiaoxin and Chu Zui hugged each other tightly. The joy and sense of accomplishment brought by success were the most touching, especially after seeing that the special ability brought by the wine was the rarest resurrection in the game. Mo Xiaoxin felt that he was going to get rich this time. Chu Zui even muttered, "I'm rich. I'm rich." His face was full of joy. After that, Mo Xiaoxin conveyed the good news to the major guilds. At the same time, he put all 12 bottles of wine up for auction. Each bottle was priced at 60,000 soul coins. That was equivalent to 20,000 soul coins for each revival. Mo Xiaoxin naturally set the price high. In fact, he was also very nervous about whether he could sell it. However, the material costs were there. The failed batches were also huge costs. Therefore, he chose to start with a high price. Moreover, from Mo Xiaoxin's point of view, the soul-praying wine was not a daily consumable. Instead, it was a super tool to save one's life in an emergency. For example, dying when one was about to kill an important opponent, dying accidentally when one was about to obtain a treasure in a dangerous area, and so on. At least from Mo Xiaoxin's point of view, that was the correct way to use the soul-praying wine. It should not be used for daily consumption because no one could afford it. In fact, Mo Xiaoxin's approach was extremely correct. He had only put it up for auction for about 10 minutes, and all 12 bottles of wine were sold. There were even 7 bottles that were purchased by players from other servers. The appearance of the soul-praying wine caused a huge sensation in the forum. Peppa Boar. A player made a resurrection coin? Which deity made it? I want to know how you did it. Double the ice cola. Begging for the recipe. Begging for the recipe. I want it too. 1 resurrection coin for 20,000 soul coins. How much profit is that? How much does it cost? Do you have 100 soul coins? King, technical player QVQ. I want to make money too. It's so hard to carry bricks. Watermelon_Turo. Guru, come on the forum and tell us how you did it. Even if you don't provide the recipe, at least show up and tell us about your entrepreneurial process. Give the brick-carrying players something to look forward to. See King's serious face. JPG_large_wolf_dog. I know who this player is. I heard from my boss that he's a very easygoing person. In order to brew the soul-praying wine, he worked very hard. Tom Wazakim. JPG. Yeet underscore Schwetter underscore is underscore the underscore cutest. I just received the news that there are resurrection coins. I was so excited at that time, but when I rushed back and opened the auction house, it was empty. Please be human. Even if you have money, you can't spend it like this. 20,000 soul coins for one resurrection chance. Please leave the next opportunity to squander like this to me. Thank you. Shuli underscore the underscore strongest. Now I just want to know what the cost is. If the cost is not high, then the price is too much. Shameless, shameless. I'm so jealous now that I'm shouting for it too. Chocho wipes tears. JPG, roasting underscore Jade underscore, while underscore hugging underscore Chong. I'm so envious. You technical players are so talented. I feel like we're not playing the same game. Resurrection coins have already been invented. I hope they can be mass-produced as soon as possible to lower the price. Otherwise, they're destined to have nothing to do with us ordinary players. Tongwa's poor smile. JPG, the appearance of the 12 bottles of soul praying wine instantly became a hot topic among the players in the forum. It was not only the forum of the local server, but also the forums of the major servers. Although it was wine, the players jokingly called it resurrection coins.